Cole, are you familiar with Schadenfreude?
Is that a German term?
It's a German word.
Okay, it sounds
it's a German term where you take joy in other people's misery.
I haven't heard that term, but I've heard other terms like that start with the word jack or a-hole, things like that. They're kind of synonyms, right?
Kinda.
Okay.
Kinda. I am prepared, should things play out the way they possibly could, to enjoy so much Schadenfreude against the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, because apparently Bill Belichick has not signed his contract with the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. He has been introduced as the new head coach, but he has not signed on that dotted line to say, I will be here. And there's rumors, Cole, heating up that Bill Belichick is highly sought after by basically every NFL franchise currently with a head coaching job opening.
Jerry.
And I cannot wait to laugh in their powder blue, you-know-what faces if it happens again with Bill Belichick.
What's the saying? It couldn't happen to a better school. Is that kind of how you'd classify
30 years of systematic academic fraud being shysted by a fraud in Bill Belichick. A fraud, not in the sense that he's not a good head coach, just that he has done this before. Remember, it was the year 2000 when Bill Belichick was hired to be the head coach of the Jets.
Yeah.
And he was there for, Check's watch, less than a day.
I thought about this, I believe, yesterday, the day before, and I just thought, what if? I think it was when you and I were talking about Dion and Jerry, and we'll get back into that later in the show today, but what if Jerry just said, you know what, Bill, here's the keys. And I mean, you talk about the anticipation that North Carolina has now to have this guy leading their program. They would absolutely crumble. They'd crumble. I mean, they might shut the football program down for a year to recover.
So here's a little bit of evidence, Cole, to suggest that this is not going to happen. Apparently, 2 staffers have been named to Bill Belichick's staff recently. They've added special teams coach Mike Prefer, not sure which. He spent time with a lot of teams in the NFL, and a former veteran SEC O-line coach, Will Friend, who had spent time with Georgia, Tennessee, Auburn, and Mississippi State. If you're adding guys to a staff, it lends people to believe that you are going to be here. But the ultimate thing is that he has not signed his contract yet.
Which matters.
Yeah, it does. And he has a gigantic buyout that stays in place until June 1st of this year, $10 million. After that, the buyout goes way down, Cole.
Would there be any, if, again, all caps if, all caps Diesel, if this were to happen, if something wild were to happen, and let's just say, for example, it was Dallas, right, who took him away, would there be an immediate change, Diesel, if this were to happen, to the hiring processes by the universities to where the contract is either signed immediately or there's some sort of rules in place to prevent this? Because this is dangerous waters when you're talking about a guy like Bill Belichick. If it's, Jamie Chadwell, you're not really worried about it.
Yeah, it begs the question, why are you having the introductory press conference before he signed the contract? I mean, at that point, Cole, you have to imagine you've gone through multiple interviews. You've made an offer in principle, say, hey, we'll get the money figured out, but we want you as our head coach. They flew him down to Chapel Hill. I assume his girlfriend enrolled in freshman classes.
Oh my God.
And at some point, you got to think, okay, this guy's going to be our coach, but why hasn't he signed the contract? Why do you go through all of that work, all of those steps, and not have a contract in place?
No, it makes no sense. You would imagine, and I haven't signed a million contracts in my life, but you would imagine that before you start your duties, when you and I started this show, I believe we did sign the contract before we went on the air, right? I think that's the norm. I wonder if this could, maybe it does not. Maybe it's all hypothetical, but I wonder if this could set a major precedent, Diesel, in terms of coaches who have the clout, who can come in and take a job, but at the same time not be. So basically what I'm saying is he's dating North Carolina right now, right? If he hasn't signed the contract, he's dating them.
Well, Ricky Mullinax brings up a really good point, and Ricky, welcome to the stream. It's been a while since we've seen you on the stream.
What up, Ricky?
Welcome in. He's, again, watching on Facebook. You can be watching Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson on Facebook, on Twitter, or on YouTube. Just search for The Fan Upstate. Make sure you like, follow, subscribe, whichever platform it is that you're watching us on. You can chat it up with other Tolos who are watching on the same platform as you. We get to see everybody's messages. You get to see the people who are chatting it up with you. We have a lot of Tolos who chatted up on YouTube. So just a heads up, yeah. Ricky, if you ever really want to jump in with the other Tolos and talk with Badcraft and Dan P and Spartanburg J and all those guys, consider moving over to our YouTube stream where there's a lot more Tolos who watch us that way. But Cole, could you have, and he said Bill is playing with UNC. They filling his son's staff. They're filling his son's staff. Think about that. What if Bill Belichick never coaches a down of football in Chapel Hill, but somehow still has his son put in place as the head coach going forward? How bad would it be, Cole? How much egg? I don't know if there's a tonnage. Are we using bushels?
Yeah.
Tonnage. How much egg would be on North Carolina's face, Bubba Cunningham's face, if Bill Belichick leaves to go back to the NFL before ever coaching a game in Chapel Hill?
Well, I think you have to look at the operations and how the operations conceded Diesel in terms of him being hired and the onboarding, rather, right? I mean, it'd be egg in the face, but here's what I'll say. I'm not saying I think it's going to happen, but it wouldn't surprise me. It just wouldn't. If Bill Belichick was hired in Dallas or Chicago or wherever it may be, I think it would shock the sports world because it's a big story. But personally, it wouldn't surprise me one bit. It wouldn't. It just Bill Belichick again. I never thought college and Bill Belichick were the right marriage.
So right now, the Jags, Saints, Bears, Raiders, Jets, and Cowboys still need head coaches. And correct me if I'm wrong, Jerry and Bill are fairly close.
Yeah, I think he's
buddies
always
for a long
respected.
time.
I think he's always respected Bill.
I think it would make a lot of sense to have Bill Belichick in Dallas because he's also dealt with I wouldn't say a megalomaniac, egomaniac in Robert Kraft, but Robert Kraft has been very, very involved as an owner. So he's got some experience in dealing with owners like Jerry Jones before, and obviously he knows Jerry from being in the league for a long, long time. But I can't stop laughing, chuckling at the thought of UNC losing Bill Belichick before him ever coaching. It would be an egg in the face to them. It would be egg in the face to the ACC. I mean, could you imagine the day that story breaks? How many SEC fans we have texting the show,
be great,
calling the ACC a joke, calling them cupcakes, calling them, can't get it up, all that stuff, right? It would be just pure schadenfreude for this to happen. Now, it's not entirely unprecedented, Cole, to have coaches who have very short tenures, especially in the NFL. In case you're curious, I did look this up. Cole, there have been 29 coaches since the NFL-AFL merger that have lasted less than one season. 29. Gerard Mayo from the Patriots, Lovie Smith with the Texans, and Frank Reich with the Panthers. Just a couple of recent examples that you can point to. But the shortest tenure ever in NFL history belongs to Bill Belichick in the year 2000. He was there for a day. They did his introductory press conference, and he wrote on a piece of paper something like, I quit. I'm not doing this. And he got hired away to the Patriots.
And what did he say in the introductory press conference when he was introduced in North Carolina? Bill Belichick said, I didn't come here to leave. It's really interesting. Jonathan Jones, Diesel of CBS Sports, he was talking about this buyout. And what's really interesting is when it comes to the numbers, the buyout clause is $10 million if he terminates his employment with a school before June 1st, only $1 million after that. Now, would Bill write that check? Having made more than $20 million in each of his final seasons with the Patriots, a $10 million check to, or $10 million check to Bill
He wouldn't even
Lee.
have to. Jerry would write the check.
And they probably would. What's interesting here is, here's what I really find interesting. To your point about him not signing the contract, he signed a term sheet. And a term sheet is officially known as a proposal of contract terms and conditions. It begins with a 2-sentence paragraph that, as one NFL source with a legal background put, is consequential to the question of what will or won't be legally forcible. Here's where my mind goes. Could Bill Belichick coach a game at North Carolina without signing his contract? Could he just never sign it? I mean, I don't know. That's a legal question that would be.
If he never signs it, do they have to pay him? Jeff R. on the text line, 844 fan phone, 844-326-3663. You can now text and call the same number. He says there are multiple sources saying that the offer letter counts as a binding contract that he signed. He may not have signed the full contract yet, but this apparently is still binding according to them. Again, Jeff, it's only binding unless somebody's willing to pay the $10 million buyout. If somebody's willing to pay the $10 million buyout, Bill can walk.
But guess what?
That's the terms of the contract.
Here's the thing, though. And Jeff R. may be right. Those sources may be right. But here's the caveat. There's a reason behind everything. There's a reason Bill Belichick, I'm telling you, I don't know what it is. There's a reason he hasn't signed the contract.
He's trying to pull the wool over somebody's eyes.
I'm just telling you, there's a reason.
Maybe
whether it's NFL reason, I don't know.
Maybe he did the press conference in Chapel Hill thinking, oh, I know there's a very good chance that I'm going to be the next Dallas Cowboys head coach. Maybe Jerry knew way back then. What was that, like 2 months ago, 3 months ago? Jerry knew way back then that he was not going to renew Mike McCarthy's contract. He said, you know who I really want? I want Bill. He calls Bill and says, hey, Bill, I want you down here. I'll pay whatever it takes to get you here. So, Bill says, okay, well, hang on. I'm going to pretend to take this job at UNC. I'm going to install my son as the coach in waiting. I'm going to set up a buyout date of June 1st. And if you're willing to wait until just before then, I can, in a legally binding sense, make my son the head coach at UNC without ever coaching it down, which is funny because it kind of echoes what we had politically with Kamala Harris not going through that whole process of
talk about nepotism.
And getting the nomination without going through the same process that everybody else does.
Now, Jonathan Jones of CBS Sports, in this article, Diesel, it does contradict a little bit with the sources that Jeff R. was talking about. I want to read this to you. This is a quote from the article. The university proposes to enter into an employment agreement with Bill Belichick to serve as the head football coach. It is understood and agreed that this proposal of terms and conditions shall not constitute a binding agreement, and the parties intend to negotiate and, in good faith, finalize these terms and conditions into a long-form agreement. So that was between Belichick and Nate Neufman, I believe, the vice chancellor at USC. So he signed the term sheet, Diesel, but that 4-page document declares that it does not constitute a binding agreement. That was from a UNC spokesperson when all this was first being introduced about why he hasn't signed his contract yet.
Yeah, I'm fascinated to see how this plays out. I don't know if Bill has any regrets whatsoever over his dealing with the Jets back in 2024 years ago. I don't know. I mean, like, certainly it worked out for him in New England. It worked. He won a lot of Super Bowls. He had Tom Brady. He's going to go into the Hall of Fame because of it. But is there any part of Bill Belichick that says, you know what? I still kind of feel like a jerk for doing things the way that I did. So would he be willing to do the same thing, essentially, again, to the University of North Carolina?
And here's the flip side. Maybe, just maybe, as you're wanting to see the egg on the face of North Carolina, Diesel, here's what's interesting. Jonathan Jones says it's not unusual to sign a term sheet and then have the full contract take a while. I'm sorry, this was from an agent who works with coaches in the pros in college. A second coaching agent who also works with college and pro coaches confirmed and said, schools drag their feet like crazy. I don't know why. A source told Jonathan Jones that North Carolina has had coaches, listen to this, coaching for a year before they actually had a contract in place and signed.
What are they doing over there?
That's North Carolina.
What are they doing over there? JB, great comment on the stream. So you're saying there's a chance Belichick could go down as the only undefeated coach in UNC football history. Good one, JB.
He'd be undefeated, all right.
He'd be undefeated and winless, too.
Let's see. Texter chimes in on the text line. 3 texts, so I want to make sure I get them in the right order here. North Carolina doesn't adhere to part performance to validate an unsigned contract so he can walk, even after coaching games if he doesn't sign. And this text comes from what the texter put, North Carolina licensed lawyer here. How about that?
Fascinating. Did you get your law degree from the University of North Carolina, just out of
awesome.
Sheer curiosity?
That is awesome, texter from the 381. Really good insight there. And a North Carolina licensed lawyer toe-lowing. How about that?
Madcraft says, why would he go to the Raiders? Washed up Billy Belichick has Cowboys failure written all over it.
Yeah, of course. Of course. I don't know, man. Like, I think the Bill Belichick and Cowboys conversation that you brought up a minute ago, Diesel, goes back to Deion and the Cowboys. Like, Bill Belichick, in my mind, is no different than Deion. What I mean by that is he's going to want the keys. He's going to want the keys to the franchise, the keys to the city. And Bill Belichick, I would argue, is going to want to do things even more so his way than a guy like Deion Sanders. So, again, you said it. That there's a lot of respect there between Jerry Jones and Bill Belichick. They've known each other for a long time. But in terms of that working out, man, that would be a match that I just don't know would work in terms of having the control that Bill Belichick would want.
And, Cole, one more, small caveat to add to all of this is Bill Belichick has what he wants. He has the keys to the kingdom in Chapel Hill. He has the potential to rebuild a program the likes that we've never seen before. But if it falls on its face, is North Carolina still a viable expansion or realignment candidate, the way that a lot of pundits believe that North Carolina is actually a more attractive expansion team, so to speak, for the SEC or for the Big Ten? If they've got this big old black eye, do either one of those conferences want them going forward?
They might not. However, I can tell you this. I would imagine that a Bill Belichick, and again, you may disagree, I would imagine that a Bill Belichick-led North Carolina is more attractive than even his son or some random, coach. Again, his longevity, how long he's going to be there, we all know he's probably not going to make a 10-year career out of this. But if North Carolina, like a fascinating way to look at it would be, could North Carolina be hiring Bill Belichick to be sexy enough to leave the conference and attractive enough to be recruited by someone else,
Wow. Just so many different ways to look at this.
It is. I
love it.
I don't know that it'll happen, but I do think that I think it'd be really, really fascinating. Texter says Charleston School of Law, Diesel, the inaugural class of 2007. How about that?
Congratulations, Cougar class of 2007.
Texter says firm in Spartanburg, despite my cell area code. Does that say Hilka Law? Hilka Law. Shout out to Hilka Law. How about that? Hilka Law would sound great as a sponsor on Wire to Wire. Just saying.
We have lots of opportunities there.
Just saying Hilka Law. That would sound great on this show.
Official partner of our web stream. How about that? Hilka
That's right.
Law.
Appreciate you, Tolos, for chiming in on the text line, 844-FAN phone, 844-326-3663. Going to get into the conversation with Deion and Dallas a little bit later, Diesel. But in the very next segment, what do we think is going to happen? We've talked about the matchups, but what are the most likely scenarios, according to you and I, in the NFL divisional round this weekend? We'll take a look at that next. Bill Belichick doesn't have a contract yet. Well, if you just tuned in, you missed that conversation in the very last segment. You can check it out on the Odyssey app. It's free. Everything costs nowadays, but not the Odyssey app. AUDACY, even though Tom in Somerville says Audacity. Isn't that a software? Wasn't that an old audio editing software? You remember Audacity, Diesel? You remember Audacity? Wasn't it? I think Audacity was
was like a download platform for stealing MP3s.
So that's why people have that in their head. Yeah.
No. It was a audio editing platform.
Was it?
It
okay.
was audio editing.
I thought it was. And then it's Odyssey. It's a great promo if you haven't heard it yet, by the way, with Tom in Somerville.
You know why we're called Odyssey?
I do not know why.
I remember I was here when we changed the name over from Intercom before to Odyssey now, and when corporate was kind of pitching everybody on the change. And they said they wanted to do that thing where they blend a couple of words together to make a new company name. And they combined the words audacious, audio, and Odyssey. Wow. Like as in the Odyssey and the Iliad, the famous, epic poem.
Yeah.
So if you think about it, we are all on an audacious audio odyssey.
Wow.
Odyssey.
That blows your mind a little bit.
Yeah.
How about that? You learn something new every day. Yeah, that's right. When I was hired here part-time, it was Intercom.
Yeah.
And I forget about that till you just said that. That van out there, I believe, says Intercom on it. How about that? So again, you can download the Odyssey app, go back and listen to the last segment, rewind feature. The chapters are labeled with what we talked about, so it's very easy to find. But I want to keep it in the NFL in this very segment, Diesel, because starting on Saturday, and we'll talk more about it tomorrow, the divisional round. It's almost here. 2 games on Saturday and 2 games on Sunday. Earlier in the week, you and I looked at these games and gave our initial thoughts on them. But what we actually think is going to happen, I also want to hear from you Tolos out there, which stands for Turn On, Leave On. That's what you are listening to Wire to Wire today. What do you think's actually going to happen as we go through these games? Give us your feedback on the text line, 844-FAN-PHONE. That's phone with an F. Also, we're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. JB, Tiger Stripes Media. What's up, Tiger Stripes Media? 102 people in the stream right now, so go check it out. Watch the show there. Diesel, let's start on Saturday, 4:30. You and I were both surprised with the Houston Texans and their performance and how they just kind of manhandled the LA Chargers last weekend. Is that enough, though? Like, it's a great story. We all really love DeMeco Ryans and respect DeMeco Ryans because he's a fantastic coach. And I think Houston hit the nail. I mean, hit the ball out of the park when they hired DeMeco Ryans, rather. And it's a great story. They're 10-7. They beat LA. They're in the divisional round. However, bad news.
It's a different story.
They're playing the Chiefs.
Yeah.
So on the road in Arrowhead, they're an 8-point dog, Diesel. Can the Tolos out there somehow convince me that Houston can give Kansas City a game, or are we just going to get what we expect here?
No, I do think Houston can give them a game. I don't think they're going to win, but as of right now, the spread on this game is 8, and I like Houston to cover because Kansas City has not been that elite all season, right? I mean, they are 15-2, but they haven't exactly been blowing teams out over the course of the season. They had
a lot of close games.
Yeah, they had a lot of close games over this season. There's just something different this year. It's hard to kind of put your finger on it, exactly what's going on. But, I'm looking down this run of games, single possession with the Ravens, single possession with the Bengals, single possession with the Falcons, single possession with the Chargers, 13-point win against the Saints, 10-point win against the Niners, 7 with the Raiders, 6 points with the Bucks. They almost lost to the Panthers.
Panthers was a good game.
Yeah, it was a really good game. So they're finding ways to win, and you gotta give them credit for finding ways to win. Maybe you credit the referees for that, but that's your prerogative if that's what you want to do. And when they played the Texans earlier this season, they won the game by just 8 points. I feel confident in Houston's ability to keep this game close just because Kansas City is not head and shoulders better than everyone this year.
There's a lot to be said. A lot of people in the media have made the Kansas City close game story a lot more than it actually is. Look, there's something to be said for the close games. Are they beatable? Sure, they've been beaten. However, what you said a minute ago is what I lean on here, Diesel. And Houston giving them a game? I think so. However, good teams what? What do good teams do? Good teams find a way to win. And look, this is like betting against Nick Saban in his prime. This is like betting, against the dynasties, Diesel, through the 90s and Michael Jordan. I mean, it's Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs, right? I mean, betting against those two in the postseason, it's a gamble, literally a gamble. I don't know. I think it could be close. JB says Kansas City 24 over Houston, 24-21. Philip Rollins on the text line says, I'm calling for a huge upset. Houston upsets Kansas City.
Wow.
431 on the text line says Houston defense will hit KC harder than they have been hit all year, and it will shake Kansas City. So a lot of feedback coming in thinking that Houston has a shot. I think they do, but if Kansas City is going to go on a championship run and win another or play for another Super Bowl, sometimes you have luck. Sometimes the ball bounces your way.
And they always seem to get lucky, this franchise.
How's the ball bounce Saturday? Right.
Right.
When that ball hits the ground and Patrick Mahomes is right there or a Texas defensive end's there, how's the ball bounce?
Well, if Chris Collinsworth is making the play-by-play or doing the play-by-play, Kansas City will win by 20.
Hold on. Let's see what network that is on. ESPN ABC. So you might luck out because he's on NBC. Right?
Oh, good.
Isn't that right? I think so. Yeah, it looks like ESPN will have the call that one. So you might not have you're right about that. Collins, oh my God, it's awful. I mean, he
never shuts up about that, even when he's not even calling a Kansas City game.
It's Patrick Mahomes, and I like Patrick Mahomes a lot. So I think that game, man, I'll tell you this. I would take Houston in the 8. Okay, that's a lot of points in the NFL in the postseason. I take the 8 points. I think the Houston Texans keep it within 8. I really do. Again, how's the ball bounce in the fourth quarter when something crazy happens? It'll be tough to beat Kansas City.
Pretending for a moment that Patrick Mahomes 7 years from now, when he's an older quarterback, let's say Patrick Mahomes is no longer happy being a Kansas City Chief, and he pulls a Brett Favre or an Aaron Rodgers and goes to another franchise. People will be falling over themselves. They would push their mother down to get a chance to offer him a big-time contract. So as much as people hate on Patrick Mahomes, and I get it, I totally get it, God, you wish that dude was on your team.
You do, and as much as people hate on him, I don't know why people hate on him. I'll tell you this, there's not a better quarterback on the planet. I mean,
no.
What do you want? We can talk about good quarterbacks. Come on. 480 says the Vikings dropped 34 on Houston before they had any injuries. Kansas City by 10. Easy. That's gonna maybe. I don't know, man. Houston, they're really well coached, so that'll be a good one. Also, Saturday, Diesel at 8 p.m. Washington, Detroit. Dan Quinn. What do you call it? The new kid on the block in Washington going up against Dan Campbell, Jared Goff. A 9.5 point spread in favor of the Detroit Lions. Diesel, Detroit a heavy favorite at home. 8:00 Saturday night. Again, Jaden Daniels is phenomenal, but Vegas is saying for whatever reason that the Lions should win and maybe even win big here.
Detroit's got way too many weapons on their team to not win this game. I think they cover. I think they cover the 9.5. Jared Goff is, if not the first, he is probably the second best quarterback in the game right now. Jahmyr Gibbs, excellent running back. Amon-Ra St. Brown, excellent wide receiver. They've got so many weapons. Maybe Washington keeps it close for 2 quarters, 3 quarters, but I think Detroit ends up just running away with this thing. Plus the fact that they're playing at home.
It helps.
It'll be Jaden Daniels' first playoff game. Not first playoff game, but it'll be still his first round through the playoffs playing on the road. It's a scary place to be. I like them big. I like the Lions big.
I like the Lions as well. The only thing that concerns me is the injuries that Detroit has defensively. That may be the caveat where I could see Jaden Daniels finding success. Ultimately, though, I agree with you. I do think that Detroit has too many weapons. I could see him winning by 10, which would be a cover. But also, if it were a touchdown game, that wouldn't surprise me as well. Madcraft says Lions by 12. So, not far off from our thinking, Matt Kraft, that, if I had a say, I'd say maybe a 10-point game for Detroit. But I don't know, man. I'd like to see on Saturday both underdogs cover here, as the Texans and Commanders are both 8+ point dogs on the road. On Sunday, Diesel, the games where I think you really sit down, you really take the remote. I don't know what your trick is, but you take the remote and you hide it, you do whatever. 2 games Sunday that I think are going to be a lot of fun. The Rams-Eagles meet at 3 o'clock. Philadelphia is favored by 6. The Eagles are really good, but do you count a guy like Matthew Stafford out, who's been there, who's won a championship, who has dudes on defense? Their defensive line, I said this on Monday, their defensive line was the most impressive unit from the entire wild card weekend, Diesel. I am thinking that I'm going to call the Rams to upset the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday.
Well, yeah, I am too, because Jalen Hurts is still, he's still going to have some lingering effects with that concussion protocol that he went through. It's an additional week, sure, but I think that's going to slow him down enough that these LA Rams run roughshod over these Eagles.
And that's the thing. Who do you trust more, Jalen Hurts or Matthew Stafford? I think Jalen Hurts has the skill set, right?
Watch this be the game when all of the players that I put money on from LA a week ago just
they're
show
up. Yeah.
Just show out.
They've got dudes on, their receiving core. I mean, when healthy, they've been really good this year, man. I don't know. I could see Philadelphia winning, but I think I'm leaning LA. They're playing inspired, the Fires. They're playing inspired football. They're rallied around their community. I think that's going to be a lot of fun.
This will be the week Cooper Kupp goes off for like 150 when he couldn't even muster 40 yards.
Which is rare, because normally, he's good for 40, which is very then the game of the night, which I think is the game of the weekend, 6:30 Sunday. Tie me to the chair, Diesel. 6:30 Ravens and Bills. Here's what's interesting. I picked preseason Baltimore to win the Super Bowl. However, I'll tell you today on this Thursday, my opinion may change tomorrow. I think the Bills win this game. I really do. You know why? I think there is, and again, you talk about, we could have an entire segment on this. Who has more pressure on them, Lamar Jackson or Josh Allen, in terms of getting over the hump? But I think Josh Allen this year, losing 2 receivers in the offseason, I think he's on a mission. And at home, Diesel, I think it's a close game. Baltimore is actually favored on the road by 1 point. But I just have a gut feeling that my pick and the Ravens to win the Super Bowl, I just have a feeling that they're gonna get beat on Sunday night.
My hope is that Derrick Henry makes the difference in this ball game and is able to push the Ravens over the edge. I mean, I want to see this team keep playing. This has been kind of a 5-6 year what if in the NFL, right? Like what if the Ravens could put together a big time run? It bugs a lot of people that the Ravens, for some reason, can't get to the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it feels like there's too much fate on the line to not have this happen.
I'll tell you this. Bold statement of the day, Diesel. Cole's bold statement on the 16th of January. There's good teams in the playoffs, okay? I'm not saying there's not. Rams are good. The Eagles are good. The Lions are good. Good teams. However, Sunday night at 6:30 is the Super Bowl. In my mind, in my opinion, I think Sunday night's the Super Bowl. I think the Bills and the Ravens are the 2 best teams. And unfortunately, they're in the same conference, so they're not going to be able to play in the Super Bowl. But I think this Sunday night, man, I really do. I really believe it that you're going to watch the Super Bowl on Sunday night. I think that the Buffalo and Baltimore, with their weapons and their quarterbacks, the battle for MVP, I think this is the Super Bowl on Sunday night.
I think you're mistaking Super Bowl with snow globe, because the weather is supposed to be absolutely awful.
Sign me
in
up.
New York.
Let's go.
It's supposed to be one of those nasty blizzard games. We'll see how it goes.
Wait, man.
When we come back, Cole, we're going to remember an absolute legend of the broadcasting world who just passed away earlier today at 90 years old. We'll relive some of our favorite Bob Eucker moments next on the Fan Upstate. You know, it's funny, Cole, depending on when certain people discover you in your career, you can be known for very, very different things, especially when you've had the kind of career that Bob Eucker had. Bob Eucker passed away earlier today at the age of 90. A lot of people know him as a baseball player. If you're an older listener, if an older Tolo, you probably remember Bob Eucker as a player. If you are slightly younger than that, you may remember him as a 54-season play-by-play voice of the Milwaukee Brewers. Others of you may remember him from going on Johnny Carson for years and years and years.
Oh.
And, of course, Cole, for me, and probably for you, and probably for a lot of our Tolos, you remember Bob Eucker starring in Major League One and Major League Two, 1989 and 1994, respectively, when those movies came out. I mean, that's how I know him. I was 5 when Major League came out. I think I grew up watching Major League Two a little bit more than Major League One. I didn't know any better at the time. Don't come after me. I was only 10. But Cole, everybody remembers him for something different, but what a legendary career Bob Eucker had.
It really was. Bud Selig, the former Brewers owner, said, "I'm heartbroken with the loss of my dear lifelong friend, Bob Eucker. I can't begin to describe how much he meant to me, let alone what this loss is for Brewers fans, the state of Wisconsin, and countless others worldwide." And again, it probably hits home for those in Milwaukee, a lot closer than it does you and I. It'd be like, one of the Carries or something like that for us Braves fans. Yeah. But it is, man. He was known as Mr. Baseball. It's tough to hear.
Born and raised right there in Milwaukee, signed with the Milwaukee Braves in 1956, made his Major League Baseball debut in 62, 1964 World Series champion with the Cardinals, great acting career, great play-by-play career, Cole. And I think, it only serves to pay tribute to Bob with a couple of my favorite clips ever from the Major League movies. Here we go with clip number 1.
Top of the 6th, and rookie sensation Ricky Vaughn on the pitch now. You can close the book on Kellner. Oh, thank God.
His sarcastic, sardonic, almost like hated doing play-by-play for the Cleveland Indians in that movie. I thought he was absolutely fantastic. Here's another one.
Vaughn, a juvenile delinquent in the offseason in his Major League debut. Into the windup in his first offering. Just a bit outside. He tried the corner in this.
Just a bit outside.
How many times have you said that?
A million times.
A million.
All 8. Low, and Vaughn has walked the bases loaded on 12 straight pitches. Oof. Boy, how can these guys lay off pitches that close?
Great scene. Everybody, God, it's such a great movie. Major League One was fantastic. Major League Two is when he really, I think, turned on his acting chops. He went from play-by-play announcer to acting chops in part 2. Here's one of my favorite clips from that movie.
Hello again, everybody. Harry Doyle here, welcoming all you friends of the Feather to another season of Indians baseball. A lot of new faces in Chief Wahoo's tribe this year as they take on the defending American League champs, the New York Yankees. And hopefully we'll have some of the names that go with those faces before their first at-bat. Anyway, listen to the roar of the crowd as the Indians take the field. Yes, sir, they love this club here in Cleveland. Just a reminder, fans, about Die Hard Night coming up here at the stadium. Free admission to anyone who was actually alive the last time the Indians won a pennant.
That's the best. I think that's the best one.
How many times, Cole, have you ever started play-by-play of a game or gotten very close to play-by-play of a game and not had a complete lineup? Does it happen a lot?
It happens more than I like to. Yeah, than I'd like to admit. You got to do your prep, but it does happen. It does happen.
My favorite piece of Bob Eucker in those movies.
Hello, Tribe fans. Welcome back to Major League Baseball. Sort of. Paid attendance today is 1,412. Some of them were driven away by that little 10-run first inning the Red Sox put up. Take over, Monty. I'm in the bag.
Oh, in the bag. I don't know, though. Just a bit outside, I think, still the best.
Just a bit outside.
It's still the best line. I mean, it really is. That's awful.
He's a legend.
He's a legend. He really is. But you know what? Guys like that are remembered for the right reasons, and he was one of the absolute best. Diesel, In the very next segment, you and I on this show have given our predictions on who we think is going to win Monday. But let's play the other side. I also want you, Tolos, to play the other side as well on whoever you think is going to lose the national championship, how that team somehow, some way could win it all on Monday and be 2024 national champions. We'll get into that next. Diesel, there are a lot of reasons as to why many people, including you and myself, believe, excuse me, that Ohio State on Monday night is going to win the national championship. There's a lot of reasons out there. Jeremiah Smith, being one of them. Their defense, as good as their defense is. We talked to Bill Bender yesterday in a really good interview of the Sporting News about this matchup. A lot of good reasons on which I agree with why the Buckeyes should be national champions come Monday.
Have you come to the realization that there is a very real chance that Lonzo's Ohio State Buckeyes and Lonzo's Kansas City Chiefs win their respective championships in the same season?
Yeah, try not to think about that.
God.
Try not to think about it. But Diesel, if we had to play the flip side here and give reasons as to why Notre Dame could pull this thing out on Monday, could win the national championship and take down Ohio State. Look, Ohio State's favored, but I don't think it's a foregone conclusion, that this is going to be a no contest type of game. I do anticipate it being fairly close for a large majority of the game.
Well, maybe Ohio State gets the flu.
Oh,
that's maybe their only chance.
Didn't Notre Dame have it last game?
Yeah, it didn't hurt them too much.
It looked great with the flu, man. They might need some more of it the way they played. Look, I think it's interesting. So that's what I want to do in this very segment. I want to hear from you, Tolos, as well on the phone lines. 844-FAN phone. That's 844-326-3663. That is the phone line as well as the text line. The phones are open as of right now. So when you talk about Notre Dame, Ohio State, you want to chat it up, you can do so. The phone lines are open. Also text the show, 114 watching right now on the stream. Diesel, I believe the first reason I would give, if I had to play the other side here and give a reason as to why I think Notre Dame could win the national championship, I think that when you look at their defense, combined with Ohio State having flashes of inconsistency throughout the season, a la Michigan, a la, the other losses they have that I am blanking on right now. Oregon, thank you. And again, they scored a lot of points against Oregon. It wasn't like they just completely pooped the bed. But going back to the Michigan loss, and then especially last game, not getting Jeremiah Smith involved, I think Chip Kelly's a really good OC. I really do. And I think him and Ryan Day work well together. But my first reason would be Notre Dame's defense being a strength versus the possibility of Ohio State just not showing up and not having the consistency that they've had or have tried to have throughout the course of the season, Diesel.
I think the difference is going to come down to how tight is Ryan Day's jock in this game. Because Ryan Day, I feel like, to him, this is the end-all, be-all. Remember that video of him about passing out when Jeremiah Smith signed? That's kind of how he feels going into this game.
Yeah.
Because he knows Ohio State fans are breathing down his neck at every step of the way, whether he's winning every game but the Michigan game or not. He's strung so tight that I think Ryan Day could be susceptible to making a mistake. And Marcus Freeman is more of this is just part of the process. For Marcus Freeman, he's not necessarily thinking about this game as his one and only chance to win a national championship. He's thinking this is part of the process to get me to winning national championships. So he feels like he plays a little bit, coaches a little bit looser, a little bit less on edge.
Yeah, I'm with you. And again, I'll give you a couple. I'll give you 2 or 3 reasons as to why I think the opposite side could win. And Notre Dame, again, the first one being, their defense going against maybe what could be inconsistency. And I know, look, we have a lot of Ohio State fans out there. Steve, Mike, the list goes on and on. I want to hear from you, Ohio State fans, on this as well. If your team were to lose, why do you think that would happen? What would have to happen? Guy wants to chime in, Diesel, on the phone lines, which you can do at 844-FAN phone. That's phone with an F. Guy, what's up, man?
Hey, well, a few things. One, I'm Rutgers, so watching Ohio State is nice, but it's also painful. And Notre Dame, I'm not a Notre Dame fan, but I am a Notre Dame coach fan. I like the guy.
Yeah.
But remember the games between Ohio State and Penn State, one possession. Ohio State, Oregon first game, one possession. Ohio State, Notre Dame, Penn State this last game, one possession. And for better or worse, Ohio State, Texas, one possession because it was a run back on what was going to be the tying drive. So it's a matter of the big play in this next game. Either team could give up the big play. I mean, Penn State could very well be against Ohio State in this one.
You got a good point.
Good point. And you know what? I also think back, Guy, to last year's game where I believe it was last year where Ohio State punched the ball out. Notre Dame was short a player on the field, and Ohio State won by, less than 3. So I like your points, Guy.
What I like, though, is Ohio State is more big play. So you're right.
Yeah.
Their defense has bad moments, but it only takes a couple of their plays. They can open it real fast. So I don't know. I painfully am saying Ohio State because we got them next year, and it would be nice to hold them under 49 points for a change. But I don't know. It'll be a good game to watch.
Hey, Guy, what about, though, on the question as to how Notre Dame could win? I mean, I'm guessing you're picking Ohio State. Is that right?
Yes,
okay,
I am picking.
So,
and again, they could be one. Look, I'm looking at the games. One big play just took a lot of these games out. Penn State could be there. Texas could have been there. So
appreciate the phone call.
Really good call. Really good call. I agree with him.
I like Notre Dame's ability to play from behind and not mentally psych themselves out of the game if they're not playing well. I mean, I go back to being down 10 points against Penn State. Penn State certainly made their mistakes in that game that left the door open, but Notre Dame was able to capitalize on that.
Would you say that's the reason for you if their ability to kind of weather the storm in terms of if they were to win?
Yeah, I don't think they're going to be they're not going to be blown out, right? They're not going to allow themselves to get down 3 scores and then let it get out of hand. I think this team has the mental toughness to be able to continue playing with discipline and scoring and chipping away at it should they get down. Now, if they get up, who knows? Who knows if Riley Leonard will take good care of the football and maybe let Ohio State back into the game.
I gave my number one reason as to if Notre Dame, if the team that I predict to lose, if they were to somehow win, Diesel, I gave my 1. I think my 2 would be the Marcus Freeman factor, like the it factor. I look. Maybe Marcus Freeman saying, hey, I'm here. Like, I'm planting my flag. I've arrived on scene. And I know all y'all talk about SEC and Big Ten, but I'm here, and I'm going to run college football for several years. I'm not saying he's going to be the next Nick Saban, Diesel, but maybe the it factor that Marcus Freeman has when these big games, you said it a couple of days ago, the stage doesn't seem too big for Marcus Freeman at all.
Certainly he played at Ohio State, so he has the familiarity there. He's not going to be intimidated by playing against Ohio State or playing against his alma mater. He has this calm about him, and it's you could tell there's a calculation going on in his head at all times, and somehow it just feels like Ryan Day is always searching in his mind. He's going over a million opportunities and strategies in his head. And he's just kind of like, all right, whatever the last one is that just came into my head, that's what we're going to do. So I think Ryan is just a little too high strung in comparison to Marcus Freeman.
I think that Ryan Day, like here's an interesting angle to look at this game, Diesel. We talk about the calmness of Marcus Freeman. I'm not saying we trust Marcus Freeman more, but let's just throw this out there. If this game were to get tight and Ohio State makes a mistake late in the game, late third quarter, early fourth quarter, and this game all of a sudden feels tight Monday, where Ohio State kind of all of a sudden has taken 1 step forward but 2 steps back, and it seems like the tide may be turning. With everything we talked about, with the Michigan loss and the losses that Ryan Day has to Michigan, does the pressure that you talked about a minute ago, does that all flood in at one time in the fourth quarter? Because, I mean, that's the reality. That's the reality. I know coaches won't admit it, But if you think about it, if we get to a fourth quarter game on Monday night where this game's either tied or close, or God forbid Notre Dame be winning the game, the immense amount of pressure that will be on Ryan Day, it might crack him. Like I said, that this season will make him or break him, but that Michigan game, looking back, the Michigan game looks like a good loss, right? Like in terms of how they rebounded and refocused, Diesel. But just imagine if Ryan Day just cracked like an egg under pressure on Monday.
Do you remember the some of the interview audio that we had from Kevin O'Connell, head coach of the Vikings, on their loss last week? And he said, I needed to realize that there were no 2 touchdown plays. Like we needed to chip away at this thing. And I think that is also Ryan Day's biggest flaw. If they get down, if Notre Dame somehow finds a way, maybe it's a pick 6 and a score, and all of a sudden you're down 14 points in the national championship game, Ryan Day may start to press. Now, I really am a big fan of Will Howard. I love the way he plays. He has great vision. He can run the ball well with his legs. He has great touch on the ball. He also does make some decisions sometimes that kind of make you scratch your head. There was that early target to Jeremiah Smith where he threw it down towards the goal line into double, or maybe it was even triple coverage. Now, ultimately, it was a good strategy for Texas because they were able to prevent them from throwing it to Jeremiah Smith a lot. But what happens if you get down big is he going to start forcing the ball into some places that it's dangerous to try to force the ball into. And then, they start pressing, they start making mistakes, they have fumbles, they have bad clock management. Any of those things can start to crop up, and all of that is a result of nerves and pressure.
What does Urban Meyer, the ex-Ohio State coach, Diesel, the last coach to win a national championship at Ohio State in 2014, what does he think is going to happen? He called his shot earlier this week. Excuse me. Urban Meyer, he said in an article on AZ Sports, Diesel, that Ohio State covers the spread. I think Notre Dame's defense is going to keep this thing close. I think this is a low-scoring game at halftime, and I think the Buckeyes walk away in the second half. Again, the opening line of the game was 9.5, which would kind of, go along with what Urban Meyer says here. I believe it might be down to 8 now. Let's see. It's currently at 8. Yeah, so it's a 8-point spread in favor of Ohio State.
If you're putting money on this, which side are you taking? On the spread, as the way it sits right now at 8.
So 8's a lot for a championship game, but my worry, Diesel, is if I were to play a side, my worry for Notre Dame would be them stalling out too many times in the second half and just not having the wherewithal and the firepower to answer. Right? Like that to me, that's where the game's going to be won Monday. Can Notre Dame answer the bell? Right? I don't think they can. I love Riley Leonard. I think he's a great person, really good quarterback, but I agree with you. I think Will Howard's a touch better. I would lean Ohio State to win by 11, maybe 11, maybe 12. Would it shock me if they won by 14 or 15? No, but ultimately, they're like, I think this is a bad matchup. I think Notre Dame's defense is good, but Diesel, Ohio State's defense is the best in the country.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's a good matchup for Notre Dame.
If Ohio State had their offense, which is elite, but they had kind of a 25 to 30 range defense, I would feel very, very much better about Notre Dame standing a real chance to win this football game.
Right.
But, I mean, again, we've seen Riley Leonard make mistakes, throw interceptions, not really be himself as he was over the course of the regular season. You could go back and look at that and say, well, it's because you're playing Army and Navy, right? I mean, you're beating you clearly out-talent them. Yeah, they were good. They were very good, but they're G5 teams, right? And they're not even recruiting. Truthfully, they're not recruiting football players with the intention of going off into the NFL to those schools. These are guys going off to serve our country, and they're still that good. So what does it really say to be offensively elite against a schedule like that?
We're going to run to a break in a few minutes, but in the last few minutes of the schedule, Diesel, I have forgotten and you may have, you may not have, but today is, as you mentioned yesterday, show number
200.
200.
How about that?
200. Show 200 right here on the
We've
Fan
done it.
Upstate. We've done 200 shows. What you said yesterday is a lot of hours. I don't
That's
know
a
how
lot.
many. It's a lot of hours.
800 hours.
800 hours. That's good math, by the way. You're starting to become a mathematician right before my eyes. Look,
It's 2 times 4.
shut up. Don't embarrass me. Don't embarrass me on air, okay?
Add a couple zeros.
Please don't embarrass me. Math was not my strong suit. Want to say thanks to you Tolos out there. 200 and a long way to go. 200 shows. It has flown by, and you know what's crazy? In less than 2 months, we're coming up on a year.
Yeah.
Coming up on a year. So I just want to say thanks to you Tolos out there. Diesel and I, we love doing this, but to be honest with you, we wouldn't enjoy it if it were just us, you Tolos, you listeners. You may not realize you play a big part, but you do. I mean, you're what makes this show fun. So it is really awesome to have you along for the ride. Wesley, Madcraft. What Madcraft? Is he hating?
He is.
Of course he's
He
hating.
says, how about that? Cole has sounded like a whiny cowgirl 200 times.
200 times, a lot to go, Madcraft. Sorry, I'm not going anywhere. You're going to get a lot more hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. Whiny cowgirl. I haven't whined. Now, if
He's doing it right now.
okay.
What do you mean? I don't whine.
I don't whine.
I don't
I don't
whine.
whine. What do you? Texter says, rumor has it that the Northern Illinois coach has picked Ohio State to cover. That's it. Bad joke. Come on. Don't do Ohio State like that was in or Notre Dame like that. That was a long time ago. That was I like that coach. We kind of forgot about him, right? Like we made there was a lot of talk about him. Texter asked Diesel, are y'all saying Ryan Day has to win the Natty or else? Ooh.
It's not or else, but it's not or else. If you know what I'm saying. Like if he's
not getting fired.
He's not getting fired for going to the national championship game and losing.
Sure.
Unless they get blown out by 4 touchdowns. And then there's a chance. But if he goes to the national championship game, loses, and then loses to Michigan again next year, his ass is grass.
Yeah. I agree with you. Like it's when we talked about it the other day, these coaches, you win, but we live in what? We live in a microwave society, man. So you gotta win now, man.
I mean, the programs that are sitting right there on the cusp, not winning the biggest, most important games, they know they've got to do what it takes to go win those biggest, most important games. And a lot of them are willing to take the risk of falling back to achieve that last little bit. When we come back, Cole, we go to the phone lines. We're joined by Pete Yanity from WSPA TV. You may know him as the longtime play-by-play voice of Clemson. He is going to be joining us on the show next. Always love bringing the show wire to wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson as absolutely local as we possibly can. So who's better to talk local sports than Pete Yannity, WSPA 7 sports director, TV and radio play-by-play host. He's been broadcasting here in the upstate for over 35 years. He joins us on the show. Pete, number one, appreciate your time this afternoon. And there was a story that broke in the last 36 to 48 hours, and it's got a lot of local parents and athletic trainers really up in arms about this. It's got a lot who are positive about the change that's coming. But Greenville County has approved converting all 15 county high schools to artificial turf surfaces. Just basic yes or no, is this a good idea to make this change?
I think you would have to look at from a practical standpoint. And by the way, great to join you guys. And you should see my Twitter feed because all I am is a messenger. And I got wind of the story yesterday. It was actually approved Monday night by the board and just kind of, I guess, got lost in the minutes of the meeting. And then I got word and followed up with Greenville County folks. I think stepping back generically, just bluntly, I'll say, I think it's a good move, but there's a lot of depth to that. And that is done with an understanding of the sentiment of those who would counter and have a different opinion on such a move. So if you want just a yes or no, I would say yes. Let me know if I can continue my testimony as to all the reasons as to why.
Absolutely.
Please enlighten us.
We're in congressional approval week of cabinet members, so we may as well do that.
Pete, I'm a roast. Based me.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay. So here's the deal. I totally get the part about, oh my God, it's going to cause more injuries. First off, there is no doubt in the artificial turf era that goes all the way back to, and I know you guys know this, the mid 60s when the Houston Astrodome was built with grass and a glass roof. And they suddenly realized, oh no, guys can't see fly balls. The sun provides too much glare. Okay, let's paint the roof. Well, now the grass isn't going to grow. And that's why the original product was called AstroTurf, because it was built for the Astrodome. Anyway, and then AstroTurf was awful. We saw, and then city governments and county governments got together and built multi-purpose stadiums. That's why you had an explosion of those in the late 60s, early 70s. We can get 2 for 1, put the football team and the baseball team in there. But of course, it was terrible and awful. And then you had the conversion back to grass, and it's great and it's wonderful. But you have to realize, like many school districts around them here in the upstate and all around South Carolina, North Carolina, and so forth, you've seen a conversion to field turf because in the old days it was quaint when all you had was a football team playing in a stadium on grass. Now you've got boys and girls soccer, varsity, and in many cases JV and lower teams. You have boys and girls lacrosse, which of course earlier this century was introduced to the area. So you could have 5 varsity teams playing games year round. And that obviously causes a clogging of practice fields because not everyone has the space that a Dorman has been blessed to have, and even some of these other schools that have been built recently. So you have multi-use, and the turf, you could make the same argument of the injury of, oh no, field turf, not good, but it's a much improved product from the original AstroTurf, and state-of-the-art changes, and it gets better and better. But you could also make the argument, could a individual, be it a high school athlete or any other athlete, not undergo, but in this circumstance, because of the crowding of the field specifically and micro to this topic, could you not be putting a child at risk playing on a substandard grass field because the wear and tear has made it look like my backyard, which I don't treat with the same care that I treat my front yard? I think you could make that argument. Secondly, when you have rain that's putting mud and making your practice fields unplayable, well, you still have a field that can dry quickly. Once you can get the kids back out there, they can practice on the field, turf field, and would not be better to keep them in good practice conditioning as opposed to having to stay in a gym and practice where they could just as well get injured, but more importantly, they are able to stay up to speed. So when they go play in a game, they don't get injured because they've stayed in practice shape. So in this case, if you just had one field that was used by one team, then you'd say, keep it grass, that's the best thing. But it's the multiple use of all these different teams in these football stadiums that led to it. And that's why in Anderson, the district that includes Westside and Hannah, Spartanburg High built a new stadium. They've got plenty of fields. They've got a beautiful high school and all of that, but they determined it was in their best interest for a number of reasons to do that. And it's not like this is some novel thing that just dropped out of the planet. I mean, look around. 3 districts in Spartanburg County, the district that includes Emerald and Greenwood. In Pickens County, you have stadiums that have field to artificial surfaces, and Westside and Hannah. I keep saying field turf because that's like calling this surface Kleenex. In other words, there are probably field turf is actually technically a brand name, but basically that's what this era of an artificial surface. It's pretty much similar to the original field turf product.
We're joined by Pete.
That is my only testimony, and I will take the Fifth Amendment on all of it.
No, it's okay. It's a good testimony, really good testimony, as we're joined by Pete Yannity of WSPA 7. From a financial standpoint, Pete, Diesel and I were talking about this during the break. Is taxpayers going to pay for this, or have you heard as to who's going to foot the bill for these Greenville County schools getting a lot of turf fields, 15 turf fields that I imagine will be a pretty costly project?
$24 million project, and then an annual maintenance cost, which probably is going to be, I saw it cited in the notes from the meeting as $1 million or so. I'm not sure of the intricacies. Let me also qualify myself as saying I'm the sports guy. And while I have a gargantuan ego and often think I'm somewhat intelligent, my response to who's going to foot the bill is that Greenville County School District, like so many entities in our area and in any state, is its own taxing authority. So that would be for those who are under the taxing jurisdiction of that, I would inquire, but I would suppose like any other entity, be it public or private, budgets are set out. This was discussed by individuals who have been placed in their roles by the process that is in place on the school board to make such decisions. And I would suppose a very serious and sober evaluation of the costs that go into this and how they will budget for it and what that means for the taxing. But that's a question that is answered by a taxing authority itself. I don't have the answer to that. But just like anything else, I mean, they built a beautiful fine arts center at Wade Hampton High, state-of-the-art, gorgeous, replicates many of the great ones we have at other high schools in the area. I would suppose at that time, they had to determine how they would go about and provide for the funding for that. They've, of course, Greenville County Schools, for those who've been around in the area, had a renaissance, a unbelievable construction project to replace aging schools in the late 90s, early 2000s. They built some beautiful high schools or added to one sitting on their existing footprint. And all of that had to be evaluated the same way this has to be evaluated, the same way in terms of cost. When they buy a bunch of new buses or build another building, has to be evaluated. But that is above my level and above my corner of the earth.
Pete Yannity joins us here on Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. I guess, Pete, you could also make the argument that now that all of the institutions in the county are playing on the same surface, there's less variance in the surface that you're playing on from school to school to school. So you're more used to playing and how it feels and how planting your foot reacts on one field versus another, artificial versus natural grass. So I guess there's a lot of ways that you could look at whether or not this is going to ultimately be beneficial. Can you give us your thoughts on the brand new DC hire at Clemson? Tom Allen had his introductory press conference yesterday. Obviously, he's got a tall task taking on LSU in his very first appearance with the Tigers. I have a feeling that Clemson's defense is going to take a massive step up next year.
I think it's, as a very smart NFL GM once said to me, and I looked at him oddly, but then realized how sensible it was. Players make plays, so you've got to have really good players. And I think Clemson's got a lot of really good players coming back to their defense. I think having someone of his experience in that role is more congruent with what they had when Brent Venables was in that role and was putting up the kind of defensive numbers that Tom Allen did in his lone season at Penn State. Look at how many teams they were able to shut down during the year, some really good teams, including, a guy who was right in the hunt for the Heisman, Boise State's running back in the playoff game. And the fact that, Penn State's offense was kind of up and down, and we kind of saw the good and the bad of that in their game against Notre Dame, but they were in every game this year, and a lot of that had to do with the defense. He's very much about doing something that another NFL coach once said to me, and that's the primary role of the defense is to get the ball back to the offense. And this guy's big on takeaways. I'm of the impression, And I'd have to watch. I mean, again, you give me Abdul Carter coming off the edge, I'm going to be pretty good. That's what Penn State had this year. I didn't watch. I can't say that I've microanalyzed Penn State enough to know this guy is doing all kinds of stunts, but he's been around enough, and he's been in a really good league for a long time, the Big Ten, that he's going to have some ideas on things. I think it's really interesting, and I think it's a sign of the times and how it's going to go forward is that he's not going to have a specific position group. He's going to be the overall coordinator, and he's not going to recruit. And I think you're going to see that become the template for the Power 4 offensive or defensive coordinator moving forward. Unless, from the offensive standpoint, you bring in a guy who was a former NFL quarterback who just wanted to be an offensive coordinator but also still wants to oversee the quarterbacks. I really think you're going to no longer see a guy. And as a result, Ben Boulware gets promoted from staff member at Clemson up to linebacker coach, and he just seems to be a great fit for that because, as a guy who's Clemson and Upstate through and through, and he'll be going out and recruiting. And I think that guy with his personality has a chance to be a great recruiter as well. So I think you'll see this evolving. The coordinator will kind of become that executive of his group, but not have a focused position group, and probably in many cases won't have to go out and recruit.
Hey, Pete, what do you make of the local basketball scene in 2024 and now in 2025? Furman was off to a really good start. Wofford kind of started slow, and USC Upstate has a guy that everybody likes to talk about this season too. But you look at Tuesday night. I mean, I believe it was, Monday night. Furman just ran into a buzzsaw like Wofford team who jumped out to a hot start and never looked back. And it seems like Wofford's kind of been put on the back burner in the last few years, but they have held their own in terms of competing year in and year out against Furman.
I think you see for Wofford real quick is that Jackson Civils, Kyler Filowich, and Corey Tripp have all played together for 3 years. Add in Dylan Bailey, who's now been there for a second year, and Justin Bailey, who transferred from USC Upstate, used to play at Blue Ridge. Really helpful on both ends of the court. Good three-point shooter, really good on-ball defender. But look at the experience they have. And if you can be old in college basketball these days, that's a huge benefit. And Wofford is really quietly more physical than I think people realize. Filowich sets that tone, but Tripp is a guy, he can get in there and get you some rebounds at 6'3" as a guard, and they're a very physical team. And I may have left out one of their other veterans. Furman, Bob Ritchie's a phenomenal coach. He had to bring a lot of guys in. You get off to a 14-1 start with your only loss to Kansas, you're doing something right and getting those guys to mesh. But I still think that they feel like even their better days are ahead of them because they've got guys still trying to, fully work into what they're doing system-wise. Cooper Bowser, their center, is vastly improved, and again, can only get better as time goes on. And with his size, he can be a real force. And Charles Johnston, the guy they brought in from Division II ranks out in California, 6'11" guy who can step out and shoot, is a matchup nightmare in the SoCon. And for a lot of schools, they would play if they could win the tourney and get to the NCAA tournament. So they've got some really interesting pieces to go with a guy like P.J. Smith and Nick Anderson, one of their newcomers, a big guard. They've got scoring guards, but Furman is a team that the other night against Wofford, clearly it was a physical game, and Wofford, for a good part of the game, looked like the more physical team, and some of the stats bear that out. And again, if they play that, they're going to play again in Spartanburg. Furman could go win that game. Furman really grinded out a good win. But it was interesting last night. The 4 games that we care about from our little corner of the world, 3 involving the upstate teams and also South Carolina, all 4 of those games were decided by 3 points or less.
Wow.
And that tells you everything. And I did a women's game last night. USC Upstate beat UNC Asheville by 3 points in that game. But, that's college basketball in conference play in January. But, just kind of an assessment there. I think Mr. Dean's the guy you mentioned, USC Upstate, human highlight reel, freshman from Miami. We live in the portal era, so what do you think is the side story? I mean, seems like a great player, good kid, new coaching staff there, but just like anything else, you got to worry about what your roster is going to look like when you get through with the season, especially when you're a mid-major.
Joined right now by Pete Yanity from WSPA 7 on Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. We recognized Dorman Products Miles Tate yesterday, who's playing exceptionally well this season at App State. A question for you that you can really only qualify from spending years covering high school sports in an area. Is there an athlete or two, boys or girls, in the high school ranks right now that you think really has a chance to be special at the next level?
If I say one, then I'm leaving out another. And I hate to be, I hate to go coach speak on you. I will say this. We do this award called our Star of the Year for high school football each year, and I have 10 area coaches vote on it. I don't have any say in who wins the award. We do it like the Heisman Trophy, in which, I give them a candidates list of like eight football players. And Cutter Woods was the winner this year, and Quez Henderson from BHP finished second. And last year, when they were both juniors, Quez Henderson won, and Cutter Woods finished right behind him. Those two guys will impact their respective programs they're going to. I think Quez sooner than Woods. But you look at Woods, I think, like any kid his age, he's going to still grow some. Really good-looking player. Learned a ton of football under Brian Smith, under Brian Lane the past couple of years. And was a play away from, if that game goes overtime, they might win it and win back-to-back state titles at Westside. I'd say those two guys look like they're going to have an impact on the next level. Woods, they brought in some competition in the quarterback room in South Carolina, but they needed to for depth reasons. But Lenora Sellers will eventually move on, and I'd be surprised if Cutter Woods isn't redshirted this year. I don't know what their plans are, but you would suppose he'll have some years of South Carolina to really show. And so I think he's an impact player on the next level. I think that Quez Henderson's an impact player on the next level. I don't claim to be that smart, but I've covered roughly 50 guys in this state as high schoolers who eventually went on and played in the NFL. And so generally you can see the it factor. The guy you got to keep an eye on too is going to South Carolina, DeMarcus Leach from Abbeville. And he's going there as a DB, but he could be one of those guys that, again, another growth spurt, and he could eventually, but what an athletic kid, great kid. And boy, what a talented player. And, he's with a powerhouse 1A program. They'd been a powerhouse in 2A before they moved down. But don't forget about DeMarcus Leach. You can see that it factor. And we've had guys come through here, and I'm thinking that guy's got a chance. And then they end up, fulfilling it. Nuke Hopkins would be an example of a guy like that. Debo Samuel, I thought, had the speed. He didn't necessarily, he had an it factor in high school. The guy scored 5 different ways in a game one time at Chapman. Nuke Hopkins, especially, though, you could just see that. But with DeMarcus Leach at Abbeville, big time player, really impressive players. There's just 3 guys in football that come off the top of my mind. Obviously, we don't have a Zion Williamson. We don't have a Kevin Garnett in the high school ranks. Got a lot of really good high school basketball players, at this time. But, no one else just kind of jumps off the page right now. And I'm probably forgetting about it. And after we're done here, I'll probably think, oh, yeah, there's that really good baseball player who's returning to, one of the schools in the area. But got a lot of good kids, though, and a lot of proud parents watching them, too.
Pete, great stuff as always. We appreciate your time, keeping it local right here on the Fan Upstate. Have a great show tonight, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys. Always my pleasure. If my time is done, I will get done with the swearing-in ceremony.
You heard him right here on the Fan Upstate. Pete Yannity, WSPA 7. Texter says, Pete has such a great voice. Of course he has a great voice. You have to have a great voice to do what Pete does for a living. So always appreciated a wealth of knowledge, as I say.
Yes, he is.
Daily Wires, it's the headlines, top stories in sports. We're going to get you caught up on those next. You know, I didn't play the Daily Wires music. Sometimes you forget, Diesel. I usually have our buzz music. Let's see if I can transition smoothly here.
Ooh.
To our
Nicely done. Right there on the beat.
Daily Wires.
Buzz.
It's the top headlines in all of sports. We may get to all of them. We may not. But guess what? It's a 4-hour show. We'll circle back. Appreciate you Tolos listening today. In Dubai, a 22-year-old American amateur making his debut on the European Tour, upstaged Rory McIlroy, Jon Rahm, and many of the world's top players at the Dubai Desert Classic for a share of the first-round lead on Thursday. Any interest in the Dubai Desert Classic, Diesel, since you're a golf guy?
Tune in for a couple of minutes, but then you realize there's no freedom over there, so I don't want to watch.
Nicely done. Nicely done. That's in the Daily Wire. That's it. No need to go on after that. Speaking of golf, Diesel, this one's interesting. I remember back a lot last spring, you and I talked about Live Golf, and we said all the time, you can't watch it. We have our opinions on why we don't really want to support it anyways, but now you can watch it. Live Golf has reached a multi-year broadcast agreement with Fox Sports, which will show each of the three rounds of the events live in the U.S. on one of its network channels and streaming at this season. More than half of its 14 tournaments will air on Fox or FS1 with select broadcasts on FS2 and various platforms. Any surprise that we're getting Live on real TV now?
No, if there's money to be made, if people are going to watch it, they're going to put it on TV.
That's right.
I will not be watching it.
Right. No,
because my opinion hasn't changed.
Yeah, and I think most people are in the same boat there. They don't want to really admit, that they support what Live stands for and has stood for in past years. But I agree with you. I don't think I'll be watching either. The Ravens the Ravens' surprising waiver claim for a journeyman. Didn't we just talk about Deontay Johnson in Daily Wires 2 days ago? Mm-hmm. And you had it on the Daily Wire. Guess what? He was picked up by Baltimore. How many teams has Deontay Johnson been on in 2024?
The Carolina Panthers traded him to where? We had this yesterday.
Yeah, I first said Detroit, but I don't think that's right.
Was it not Baltimore? Did they trade him to Baltimore, who then waived him, and then he got picked up by Houston, and then he got waived by Houston? Is he back in Baltimore? Is that the case?
Gosh, he's a journeyman, all right.
All over the place.
How does he keep getting signed is what I want to know. Legendary, we talked about this, Diesel, legendary baseball player, play-by-play voice, swing and a miss, and actor Bob Eucker passed away today at the age of 91. We had some really good audio earlier in the show. Tough to hear that.
It was, man. I grew up with Bob Eucker. I grew up not knowing Bob Eucker, the baseball player, not knowing Bob Eucker, the Brewers play-by-play voice. I knew him as the Cleveland Indians play-by-play voice from Major League.
Major League. How about that? One more for you before we run to a break, and we'll circle back later in the show. But this one's interesting. JR Motorsports, co-owned by Dale Earnhardt Jr. and Kelly Earnhardt Miller, will field an entry in the Daytona 500 with NASCAR Xfinity Series champion Justin Allgaier as the driver. Allgaier's number 40 Chevrolet, sponsored by Chris Stapleton's Traveler Whiskey brand. Those are some Daily Wires. We'll hit back on some of those later in the show, Diesel, but I know the Tolos are on the clock.
Yes, you are. Tolos, start calling 844-FAN-PHONE. You can text in as well, 844-FAN-PHONE. That's 844-326-3663. The Tolo takeover is next. This is your time to shine. Get calling, get ready. That's on the other side on the Fan Upstate. Tolos, call in and gripe, moan, complain, shout out, single out, or call out anyone or anything you want. This is the Tolo Takeover. 844-FAN-PHONE, 844-326-3663. If you need a little help on what to do, let all the Tolo greats show you how it's done.
Okay. It took me 1 hour to get $14.65 worth of gas.
By God, if I don't get that extra cup of sauce, I'm coming back in. I ain't waiting in line.
Okay, I saw some stuff on the internet that really got me going. Y'all have got me conditioned that I gotta say thank you every time I call you guys. And when it's the Tolo
what's your name?
I kind of want to just call and be angry for a minute, but I got to start off being all cordial and say thank you for taking my call.
Have to.
This isn't a bad part. I mean, that's a bad part, but that's not why I'm mad as hell.
The Gamecocks are trying to win and Cut Blues on Saturday.
Y'all need to be fired.
The grocery stores, at least the ones nearest me, are completely out of frozen pizza, except for cauliflower pizzas.
Oh.
So if you are at the grocery store and nobody will buy your cauliflower pizzas, maybe you should stop carrying.
What really ticked me off when he speaks, not because he's the Clemson football coach, but when he speaks about an ACC game, he makes it seem like it's some big ordeal. Dabo, your schedule sucks.
And I am pissed off today, okay? It took me 1 hour to get $14.65 worth of gas.
Ooh,
A
old
lot
Tolos.
to live up to, Tolos.
I'll tell you what, man, it's one of my favorite segments. And I even want to just say, we've got to update this promo next week. And if you Tolos out there are upset about something enough, Diesel, to make the promo, today's the day to have the take, because we're gonna be updating that intro. I said promo, I'm sorry, that intro rather, after today. So I can't remember who it was a couple days ago in the stream. Oh my gosh, it was somebody that was really mad about something, and I think it was Scotty from BMW was upset about something, and he said, "I'm calling in Tolo Takeover." He was livid. So whatever you want. You want to go first though, Diesel? You have something?
I can go first. Yeah, I'm on my way to work here today, Cole, and I'm running a couple of minutes late, so I'm maybe a smidge bit exceeding the speed limit.
I don't ever do that.
And I'm stopped at the stoplight down the street here on Miller Road, kind of on the backside of Malden High School. And I'm turning right. And I got to wait for cars that are going straight on that road. And you know how most people don't use their turn signals anymore.
Sure.
They don't tell you if they're turning. So I'm sitting there waiting to turn. And behind me I hear beep, beep, beep. 3 seconds. Beep, beep, beep. Some jerk is behind me honking at me, telling me to go. Get your ass in gear, Diesel. Move along. Well, here's the thing, Cole. I make the turn, and I'm getting up to speed, and this guy punches it, zooms around me, crosses the double yellow line to zoom around me, and then he slows down right in front of me to give me one little, like, screw you, dude.
Yeah.
And he takes off. But guess what? He got about 100 yards up the road, and then there's a line of 4 cars in front of him, all going really slow. And so I finally catch up to this guy, and he's doing the hand signals of like, get out of the way.
Yeah, it's his world.
I got places to go. Get out of the way.
Yeah.
This guy keeps getting caught up by slow car after slow car after slow car. He even gets stuck at the stoplight over here trying to cross Woodruff Road, and he's doing the same thing, like, come on, man, go. Yeah, animated. I'm like, dude.
Which Tolo is this? Which Tolo?
I wish I knew. I wish I knew. It was a black Volkswagen Jetta.
Oh, Tolos.
Calling you out. Black Volkswagen Jetta, you suck. You suck.
What if it was a Tolo and they didn't know it was you? You didn't know who it was, obviously, because you can't recognize them. And they're listening right now like, dang, that was me.
Yeah, you know who you are.
That would be great, but bad. Oh, boy, that's going to be fun. Guess who is on the line and wants to kick this Tolo takeover off, Diesel? The one, the only, Dewey. What's up, Dewey?
Who needs to be fired today, Dewey?
Yeah, no kidding.
Yes. I'll tell you what I'm upset about. I'm upset with Chris Justice, but that's not my rant's going to be about today. I'm sick and tired of going to the gas station, having to go use the bathroom, and when I get in the bathroom, either the toilet has pee all over it, or it's pee on the floor, or the toilet don't flush, or the toilet's just dirty, and they have signs saying my bathroom is clean. Your bathroom's not clean, QT or Exxon. Your bathroom's not clean. And then when I have to take a dump, there's poop residue all over the place. I'm tired of it. We're grown people.
You would think so.
There's just poop everywhere. So you have to sit down and get poop residue all over your butt, and then you get butt disease because of it.
God.
Dewey, why didn't you go?
It makes me mad.
Dewey, why didn't you go to the bathroom before you left the house?
I did.
No, I'll tell you what, Dewey appreciates the call. Diesel, believe it or not, I agree with Dewey on this. I have lost faith in our humanity when it comes to public restrooms.
Yeah.
But it's not like
we're terrible.
No,
as a species.
I put the blame on both. Like I put the blame on us for being messy, which is ridiculous. Don't be messy. But at the same time, like if I owned a gas station or a restaurant or whatever, I'll tell you the place, the cleanest place in my restaurant would be the bathroom. I'm telling you, man, it speaks a lot.
Well, you got to think if you're talking about a gas station, and he specifically called out 1 2-letter chain, which is a high volume convenience store, right? You'd have to go in there and clean that bathroom like every 15 minutes.
I know, but have somebody.
It's ridiculous.
Have somebody on staff that their only job is to clean bathrooms.
You know, there used to be a time back when we were a proper country. We had bathroom attendants, and that was their job. Not only to help you if you needed something from like a Q-tip, or if you needed something to wipe your face or whatever it was, they were there to help you handle all of those issues. But we've gotten away from doing that kind of stuff.
We have. So like, I think there's blame on both sides. I've never been that messy. I don't understand. I hate it too. Like
some people just like being messy because they want to see the world burn. Look, it's 2025, Cole. Why don't we have some form of sanitizer, like automatic thing? I grew up watching a movie called The Fifth Element. And in The Fifth Element, you lived in your apartment, and every time you got out of bed, it would automatically clean the bed for you.
Yeah.
It would remake the bed, and then it would put like plastic cellophane across the bed so that you knew your bed was fresh, clean, and ready to go for the next day. Why don't we have some sort of sprayer nozzle system that sprays everything down with a fast drying sanitizer? You sanitize the surface at the very least, and then come on, why don't we have a poop detecting robot? Will like, it's a camera inside the bowl that like looks for residue, and then it blasts it extra hard with some cleaner. And then all of a sudden, we don't have to deal with dirty toilets all the time.
And I agree with Michael on the text line. A lot of texts coming in, which, by the way, Tolos, if you want to join the Tolo Takeover, the phone lines are where you need to join 844-FAN-PHONE. That's 844-326-3663. Michael says, if you're in sales or drive for a living, you know which bathrooms are good and which ones to avoid. Michael says the Food Lion and Fountain Inn is clutch. Just a PSA. He's right on that. Like I drive a lot, and you would expect the 2-letter gas stations normally to be cleaner.
Yeah,
but sometimes they're not, man. Sometimes I'm telling you, just pay somebody. Somebody's back there freaking making ice. I agree with Dewey on this. Somebody's making ice cream and pretzels. Pay somebody. Hey, your only job. Maybe
they can't get people to do a not disgusting job like
I know,
like making ice cream and pretzels.
We'll pay them a lot of money. Pay them a lot. $30 an hour.
I'm gonna quit my job and go do that. That sounds way better than this. Texter says a black Volkswagen Jetta. Clearly, his rush was to get home so he wouldn't be seen in his girlfriend's car.
Oh, I like it. I like it, Texter from the 321. Spartanburg J used the text line. We'll accept it. We prefer the phone lines, but we'll accept the text line as well. Spartanburg J says, Tolo Takeover. Who do Penn State fans think they are? On what planet is Penn State football a better program than Clemson? Do we need to compare trophy cases? I don't get upset about much, but I'll be damned if Clemson isn't one of the best programs in the country. Spartanburg Jay, I said yesterday that I did not think it was a step down. I told Diesel if I think it's a step in any direction, I agree with you. I thought it was a step up for Tom Allen. So I'm with you there. I don't think it's a step down by any stretch.
Michael says you got to use those scrubbing bubbles. They clean the bowl so you don't have to.
What does he mean?
The scrubbing bubbles that cleans the toilet. They clean the bowl so you don't have to.
Yeah,
That's
but you in a freaking public restroom. Texter from the 803 says Publix, that's with an X, the grocery store, restrooms are the best. Are they? Why are they the best, Texter? Because they probably have someone that cleans the restroom. I'm telling you, man, just pay somebody to clean them. I don't know why. It just bugs me out having dirty bathrooms.
Some people never learned. Some people just like to be disgusting. It's just a fact call. I remember going into a restaurant bathroom once, and there was what's the nicest way to say that? Dirty tissue in the trash can.
Oh my God.
And I found out the answer to why somebody would do that. I was complaining amongst friends, and the friend that I was speaking to was Brazilian. He goes, it's probably somebody from South America, because most South American countries don't have strong enough plumbing.
Yeah, that's right.
To flush dirty toilet
Same
paper,
thing.
So they throw it in the trash can, which is gross.
Hey, when I go to Nicaragua every summer,
that's what they do.
That's what they do.
Gross.
That's why you just try to avoid it. Like you like I'm there a week, right?
You went for a week without duking?
No, but you try your best to. You really do.
That's
and
so
you know
gross.
what about it is, like if I am on the way here, or if I'm in the morning somewhere and have to go to a public restroom, I've showered, I'm clean, I feel good. And then I have to go to a freaking nasty bathroom, and the rest of the day think, oh my God, I just sat on a toilet that 75 other people sat on in the same day who didn't take a shower, who have like 6 diseases. I don't like.
That's why you got to train your body. You got to train your body to need to go at a time where you know you're going to be home every day, and stop eating gas station food.
I've gotten better on that. I told you I'm
Good.
doing carnivore, so I'm getting better there. I really am. All right, let's go to the phones. Tom in Somerville, Rick and Greer. These two should be good. Tom in Somerville, you're up first in the Tolo takeover. What's up, Tom?
Hey guys, Dewey brings up a valid point, but I was always told as a kid, you always try things in public bathrooms that you wouldn't try at your own bathroom. And so it looks like Dewey ran into somebody who was more willing to try something at a public bathroom that he didn't want to try at his own bathroom. And I'll just leave it at that.
I don't even want to know.
I don't even know what you mean.
I don't know. I don't want to know.
Are you talking about like trying to hit the ball for distance?
3-point shot?
I mean, it was just a thing I heard growing up.
Okay.
Now, the thing I want to rant about today, guys, the Gamecocks basketball team held Vanderbilt to shooting 19% from three, and they still lost the game. Like, that to me has been driving me crazy all day. You hold a team to 19% from three, and yet you still lose the game.
Tom, I don't know why you're getting upset about Gamecock basketball this year. Your expectations are too high. It looks like it might just be one of those years, Tom.
Well, yeah, that's what I said a couple weeks ago. But I guess what makes me so mad is, I'm a Gamecock through and through. I don't give up hope. And, I can go out there and I can say this team might lose every game they play, but it's still going to drive me up a wall when they lose.
So
it
Tom,
don't matter the sport.
I think the problem is the universe has decided that South Carolina can really only be good at one thing at a time, right? When it comes to football and basketball, specifically football and basketball, when South Carolina was really good, made that deep run into the tournament a couple years ago, the football team was still kind of mediocre, hadn't quite found their footing right yet, right? So this year, the football team goes on to win 9 games, and all of a sudden the basketball team falls right back off. You can't have both at the same time.
I know. It's one of those things. I guess the world just hates the Gamecocks. But, if you win 9 games in football and you beat the little Clemson Tigers, I am okay with that. If that is the outcome every single year, the basketball team can go 10-27. I don't care. Just you got to be really, really good at football if basketball is going to fall off.
I like it. I like it.
But yeah, but go Gamecocks. Rick, I know I got your Christmas card sent back. I got it back in the mail. You should be getting it. But other than that, y'all have a good night.
Wait, Tom. Rick, you there?
Yeah, thank you, Tom. I appreciate it. I've been waiting on that thing forever.
I know. I've been waiting on you to get it forever. But, of course,
well, if you'll ever give me one, hey, it's like kissing a woman. If you ever give me one, I'll give you one back, okay?
I mean, yeah, that's usually how it goes, I guess.
Okay.
Appreciate you, Tom. Thank you for the phone call.
Yeah, have a good night, guys.
Yes, sir.
Rick, what's up, man?
Okay. Dewey, I'm sorry. You just got in the bathroom right after I left about getting mad about getting gas. I'm sorry, Dewey, okay? You went in the bathroom that I used. I'm sorry. I apologize, Dewey.
That's gross. That's gross, Rick. You got to be better than that.
Rick, you don't drive a black Jetta, by the way, do you?
Yes, I do.
He's so full of it.
No, I drive a Fiat. I drive a little red Fiat. But I believe I know who that was.
Who?
I believe it was that guy you piss off all the time about Miami. He drives a Jetta.
And he's
Madcraft.
He's on.
Madcraft. That's his name. He drives a black Jetta. I know. I've seen him get out.
Madcraft, are you going to stand for that kind of slander?
No, I drive a Suzuki. That's not fair.
I'm sorry, Madcraft. I thought you rolled up in a black Jetta one day.
He thought he was talking about you behind your back, not to your face.
He is tired of your Miami. He is tired of your Miami crap, though. Rick is, just so you know, man.
Hey, listen. Listen. Hey,
we're listening.
I got to eat crow at this point. I got to eat it.
Yeah, you do. You got to eat it. And
that's what I'm doing.
Sorry about the bathroom, guys. I got to go.
Thanks.
Thank you, Rick.
Literally.
God.
Oh, God, Rick.
This TMI.
Gross.
Madcraft, you're eating crow. What else is on your mind, man?
Oh, is this the takeover, I guess?
This is the Tolo takeover. Good morning. Thanks for waking up and joining Wire to Wire today. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Listen, let me tell y'all something funny that happened to me today. I had to take my dad to the doctor. And as we went in there, we were sitting in there, and the doctors come in, and they started chatting away and laughing and stuff. And then they started getting to a point where they were talking about his future stuff and scheduling whatever he needed to do in the future. Well, I walked out and was waiting out in the lobby, and then he come outside, and we was walking back out to the car. But I know while we were inside, they had mentioned the word colonoscopy. So he looked a bit nervous the entire time. But as we walked all the way back to the car, we sat back in the car. We sat there in silence for about 5 seconds. And he just looked over at me and he said, well, they got me scheduled for a moon landing and a soil sample. So,
God. Worse than that, why is today's Tolo takeover been centered around?
Why is it all butt stuff?
Oh, God.
We just got a text that says, sound like you guys are going to need to dump all this Tolo takeover.
No kidding,
today.
man. God. Madcraft, good. Glad he's doing good.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, I appreciate you guys.
Thanks, Madcraft.
All right. If he walks funny, don't worry about it. It's normal. It's natural. Dan B says, Jetta, Fiat, Suzuki. What the hell are all these rednecks driving? Why no Chevys or Fords?
You know, or in Greenville, DB. Greenville's full of
fancy.
It's fancy, a mixed bag, if you will. That was a good Tolo takeover. It was kind of crappy, but it was okay. See what I did? I want to say, Michael said, just think, you drop your shorts, talking about the gas stations, and they touch the floor. I threw up in my mouth. Yeah, I think that's a gross part of it too. So thanks to Dewey for getting this whole Tolo takeover going in that, crappy direction. Because he's right. It is. I mean, I'm not a clean freak like over the top, but I clean back here, like sanitize and get all Alonzo's germs out of here from in the morning. But the gas stations, man, I don't know. You're right. There needs to be a solution. I'm glad you can't see germs, because I hate the feeling of having, been to 2 or 3 gas stations or a store.
You can if you have one of those black light flashlights. You can see
no
germs
thanks.
with that.
No thanks. No thanks.
Don't
at
take
all.
one of those into the bathroom. You look like a Jackson Pollock.
No, I think they need to invent a way to do the number 2 without having to use everybody else's, same means.
What if there were like straps that hung down from the ceiling? So instead of sitting on something, you grab a hold of these things and they lower you down and you just kind of squat over it, like you hover.
Hold your feet up?
Yeah, well, I don't know if you got that kind of core strength.
I don't know, man. I just don't know. So Elon Musk, somebody smart out there needs to. This is a problem. I agree with Dewey, man. They got to figure this out. It's just too many people getting sick in gas stations.
Texter says this segment is a real movement.
Ooh,
gross.
See what you
Michael
did there.
says enough with this crappy conversation.
All right,
wow.
Tolos, well done on the crappy Tolo takeover. Well done. Texter, let's see who this is. Michael also says, pro tips for on the road: find a hotel, walk in like you're staying there, and use the restroom in the hotel lot. It's not a bad idea at all. What's worse, gas station bathroom or hotel rooms? Asked Michael. I still think gas
I don't want to
bathroom.
know. I don't want to know what's in my hotel room.
Well, that's true too. God, where'd this go? Now I'm disgusted. But I might not be disgusted if Jerry Jones gets this right. We heard some audio in the sports flash a couple of minutes ago, Diesel. But guess what? I don't know if it's gaining traction or not. It was Ed Warder of ESPN. I'll try to get the audio during the break. But Deion Sanders to Dallas, I don't know. It may be gaining traction. Let's see if it's going in the positive direction. We'll get into that next. Well, Diesel, this the Deion Sanders to Dallas movement. I said yesterday during the 5 o'clock fight that I thought it would be shot down, that I don't think it would happen. I'm still leaning that way. I still don't anticipate Deion Sanders getting the job as the next coach of the Dallas Cowboys. However, I don't know, man. It seems as if some believe that have talked to Deion Sanders and are in the know, right? Especially like people like Ed Warder of ESPN. And again, I'm getting the audio on this from Ed. It aired in one of our sports flashes earlier in the show, but people in the know really believe that if Deion were offered the job, he would take the job as the Dallas Cowboys head coach. Again, I'm still on the train of it not happening. However, maybe one day soon, it may look like I might be proven wrong.
Look,
we'll see.
I love having coaching stars in the level of football that I love the most, college football. I love the big personalities. I love Lane Kiffin being there. I love Ryan Day being there.
Sure.
I love I can't call Billy Napier a big personality, can you? But Deion Sanders is great for college football, and college football has been great to him. He's built a phenomenal staff out there in Colorado. I think it would be a real shame for him to jettison the program and the sport this quickly, because he's only been a coach now in college football for 4 years? Spent 2 years at Jackson State, 2 years at Colorado. I need to see more from him. Number one, to see if he's NFL ready. I'm not sure his personality fits. We've spent a lot of time talking about that, but I want to keep as many big personalities in the coaching ranks in college as we can.
No, I'm with you. Look, and again, I've got this audio from the Dan Patrick show earlier today, Diesel. I like big personalities in college football. I think it makes the sport even more attractive than it already is. However, while Deion has only been at Colorado 2 years, I'll go on record and say I think Deion Sanders, even without a championship, I think Deion Sanders has already proven his worth at the college level. I think he has. I think what he did at Colorado was impressive enough for me to believe that he's proven his worth. He said, well, he had his son, Shedeur Sanders. Well, look, there's a lot of other quarterbacks out there better than Shedeur Sanders that he could have had.
Yeah,
so
what's his record in college? His record at Colorado, 500?
Probably,
roughly?
without looking. And again, I don't want to base my opinion of Deion on his record just because of where he is. I saw enough from Colorado being relevant and being able to win games that they usually had no business winning. And I also saw enough when it came to Deion being able to lead men. Like, he's just a leader, and he's got it figured out. Again, he didn't win a national championship. He didn't win a conference championship. So a lot of you might say, well, he's not proven. But I think he is. I really do believe Deion's proven. Diesel, here is what Ed Warder of ESPN said earlier today on the Dan Patrick show. And again, these guys, they talk to Deion. So maybe it's gaining traction. Let's see what Ed Warder had to say.
So you piqued my interest with this. So explain what your tweet was all about.
That was my one and only interest in tweeting, Dan, was to get your attention.
Thank you.
And to have an opportunity to make a long-awaited guest appearance on the show. If you want to play golf again, let me know.
Yeah.
So I've been obviously following the Cowboys, for a long time, but certainly throughout this season, and extending that coverage through the dismissal of Mike McCarthy, which I think surprised a lot of people, even those of us who cover the team on a regular basis. When you start configuring a list of potential candidates to be the next head coach, only in Dallas do you have to make sure to include Deion Sanders and Jason Witten, former, Cowboys tight end great who Jerry is enamored with, who has only coached at the high school level. Regarding Deion, obviously we know that he has not yet formally interviewed for the job. The Cowboys have extended invitations to Leslie Frazier and Robert Saleh to be the first two to interview formally for the job. But Deion told Adam Schefter the other day that Jerry Jones reached out to him, and they discussed the job. And everything I continue to be told, Dan, is that Jerry is interested. It was described to me as he's enamored with the idea. Obviously, it's hard to imagine any coaching candidate who could create more interest, someone that Jerry could more sell to the fan base here, which needs to happen, and make Jerry more money than Deion Sanders. I mean, he won a Super Bowl here as a player. So there are also people around Deion who tell me that he's being urged by his supporters in Colorado to take the job, and that they believe if Jerry ever does offer him the job, that he will take it, that he has an extension to remain at Colorado on his desk that he hasn't even looked at as he considers these other possibilities. But, you know, I mean, there are also people close to Deion who tell me they don't see it happening, but they've seen things happen with Jerry Jones that they didn't expect to happen before. And he did hire Barry Switzer, so you can't rule anything out. He's the most unpredictable owner in the NFL on any subject, especially this one.
So that's Ed Warder and you know, his thoughts, Diesel. Look, I think it's interesting that Jerry called Deion, number one. Deion Sanders this weekend is going on a snow skiing trip, from what I heard this morning in another radio show, to kind of just reset from the season, get away, have fun. Yeah, I'm jealous, right? Wish we were doing that up in Colorado, I'm sure as well. But look, I think that guys like Ed Warder and other people who are in the know, I think they know the reaction that the Cowboys would get financially, as well as Deion. And you know what, man? Maybe, just maybe today I kind of start believing that it is going to happen a little more if it continues to gain traction. And just maybe, Diesel, maybe I'd be in favor of it. But like I said, I'm having to warm up to it.
You telling me that Jerry Jones doesn't already have a list about 25 items long that he would write Deion Sanders' name on and sell it inside of his team stores and online everywhere? You telling me that he wouldn't immediately put throwback Deion Sanders jerseys on sale in the online team store? You telling me he wouldn't have hats that only Deion would wear on the sidelines that fans are going to want to buy? You telling me he's not going to sign posters and make a ton of money off of that kind of stuff? Yeah, Jerry Jones is a businessman, and he also understands that it's an instant jolt in attention, right? As the team has been, it's gone from must watch to it's okay if I can miss it TV when the Dallas Cowboys are on. And this instantly turns the Dallas Cowboys back into must-see TV. And there's certainly something for that. Again, I think that Deion probably could find some success at the NFL level. I don't know how much, but I'm selfish. I want Deion in college.
Michael in Simpsonville chimes in, what you can do at 844-FAN-PHONE, 844-326-3663. Michael says, Jerry will hire anyone who makes headlines, and Deion will bolt ASAP. He is losing his whole offense at Colorado and the only defensive player that made an impact. That comes from Michael in Simpsonville. Look, I think it comes down to the vision that Deion has, not just for his coaching career, but for ultimately the vision that he has, Diesel, when it comes to challenges. Like, I really believe that Deion Sanders is a guy that believes in his heart he can do anything. I think he's one of those guys, right, where he feels like there's no challenge that he cannot conquer. And you know what? Part of me believes, again, I don't know Deion, but part of me believes that that Deion Sanders looks at this, Diesel, as a challenge that would be the ultimate challenge. Think about it. Think about this now. Dallas hasn't won a Super Bowl in 28 years. You made Colorado relevant. You proved that you were a good coach at the college level. But if Deion Sanders could win a Super Bowl as a player and a coach, as the head coach of Dallas, Deion Sanders may be looked at as the greatest athlete and coach of all time. I mean, nobody else will be able. I mean,
he was a two-sport athlete. Why not be a two-level coach?
I don't know, man. I just think that if it were offered, now I would love to know. They hadn't interviewed. I would love to know what was said on that conversation between Jerry and Deion, right? If Jerry was gauging interest, or if he was just feeling Deion out a little bit. I ultimately think that Deion is a guy who embraces the challenge. Now, he has said multiple times, Diesel, that he wants to impact men. I'm not saying that you can't impact men in the NFL, but I do believe at the college level, you have a better opportunity to mold men than you do at the NFL level, right? You're dealing with grown men in the NFL. In college, you're dealing with young kids who are trying to become young men. So ultimately, it might come down to money, but it would not surprise me if Deion just said, you know what, I've proven myself in 2 years. Maybe I'm coming around to it. I'm talking now, Cole. I wouldn't put it past Jerry, and now that I think about it, I wouldn't put it past Deion.
Well, here's the different beast that Deion is going to have to deal with, and he's going to have to come to terms with. Does he want to tackle this kind of beast, right? When he's in college, he can hire a staff, whoever he wants, and he got some big-name guys. He got Pat Shurmur on his staff. He had Warren Sapp on his staff and some other big-name assistants to come to Colorado with him. He also could instantly upgrade his roster via the portal and NIL money. And, of course, just his cult of personality. People want to come play for Deion. They want to go play for a coach. Even if some of these kids don't really, they weren't, probably most of them weren't even alive when Deion was playing as an elite level pro player. So they don't know him as a player. They can watch highlights, but they don't know him as a player. They just know that he was a great player, that he won a Super Bowl in Dallas, that he won a bunch of national championships at Florida State, and he is one of the biggest personalities and media darlings in the sport right now. So he can instantly upgrade his roster in multiple ways, which is something you cannot do in the NFL. You got contracts. You got guys who have 3-4 years left on their deals. You cannot change things overnight in Dallas or wherever it may be if he were to get another NFL job, the same way that you can at Colorado.
No, I agree with you there. I think if he were to go to the NFL, if he were to go to the Cowboys, Diesel, I think you would learn a lot about Deion's X's and O's. I'm not saying he doesn't know X's and O's, but I'm just saying, like, at the NFL level, to your point, you've got your dudes. Yeah, you can draft. Yeah, you can make trades. Yeah, you can sign free agents. But it's not a turnover like you see at the college level. I think you would really quickly find out how good Deion is when it comes to X's and O's, being able to adjust in game, and being able to keep a locker room together through a long NFL season that has a lot of these. And that's ups and downs, man.
One thing that makes me nervous about Deion Sanders is that there is a possibility that Deion Sanders is nothing more than a snake oil salesman as a coach. He rolls into town, he lays out his mat, puts all these fancy tonics and tinctures and potions and oils and this down. And as soon as people start to figure out, hey, none of these things actually work. Right? He's a 500 football coach at Colorado. He's rolled his blanket up and he's on to the next town where he's got a new bunch of suckers.
I hope not. Again, we'll see. It'll be really interesting. You know what? I'd take him over freaking Robert Saleh. I mean, I really would. So if that's what it takes to win a Super Bowl or get back to relevancy, I guess sign me up.
When we come back, Cole, we are 1 month away from the biggest race of the season, the Daytona 500. What's coming up? And do we have any thoughts on the brand new 2025 season? That's next on the Fan Upstate. Cole, if I hadn't just told you in the last tease for this segment that we were a month away from the Daytona 500, did you realize that we were a month away?
Yes, because one of my close friends is a NASCAR-aholic.
Yeah.
So, I did know because of him, a large part. But, it's one of those things that's lost a lot of traction. But, yeah, I did know.
I used to pay attention to the Daytona 500 every single year, and the health of this race is doing just fine. As JB just pointed out on the stream, the 2025 Daytona 500 is sold out. The fans are going to be packing that racetrack in, and I'm sure the infield is sold out as well. Stands about 100,000 strong. Plus, I've heard, I don't know if this is true or not, but I've heard about another 50,000 can be in the infield as well. So for a total of about 150,000 people going to be in Daytona on that day. That race is doing just fine.
Yeah.
Because it is the biggest race of the year. It's the first race of the year. Make it make sense. The point structure being what the point structure is, you have to get off to a fast start. So in theory, you could say that the first 10 races are the most important races of the year, but the Daytona 500 is unlike any other, Cole. But I find myself having a hard time caring.
Well, again, if you've tuned it out, I think it's hard to regain the interest if you've tuned it out. If it's not something and again, like last year, I watched the end of races all the way up until football season. Then once football season came around, I forgot NASCAR was still on. I think the storylines are really interesting. The way that they do some in-season stuff, the way that they're going to do some in-season stuff coming up this year for the very first time, I do find that fascinating. I have to kind of rely on the storylines to keep my interest. I really do, because the racing itself, sometimes it just gets monotonous, right? It gets kind of boring going in circles one time, two times. Now, I think for me, the storyline that gets me, that does get me interested is Denny Hamlin's dominance for all of these years without being able to close the deal, without being able to close and win the championship. And we talked about it a lot last year with Shane Connick of the Charlotte Observer. A lot of people thought that Denny was going to finally, lick the envelope and close that envelope, Diesel, in last year and win the Sprint Cup championship. But guess what? He wasn't able to do it. And it was Joey Logano who won the championship last year. So
would he have won the championship if it was still scored the way that it had been in the past?
It's a good question. I don't know.
You win a bunch of races, you remove the whole playoff element of things, because truthfully, Cole, that's the biggest thing that is taking me out of the sport. You telling me that you've got this whole long season and now you're going to cut it into thirds, and the last third is scored separately and differently from the first 2/3. Why? Yeah. I mean, maybe it's just me, right? Maybe it's just me. Obviously, JB and Dan and Madcraft and all those guys, you love NASCAR, even what it's become, and that's great for you. But I have a hard time wrapping my mind around. Here we are. We've had this sport that has existed and been wildly popular for generations, and we're going to change all of it to suit a different modern audience.
Yeah, but again, I think the modern audience. Again, I don't know if this is NASCAR's intent or not. It seems as if they Diesel. Maybe the modern audience is all NASCAR cares about. You know, there are a lot of old NASCAR fans that don't watch anymore.
I get it. Maybe there's that fan base. And as much as NASCAR obviously still reveres Dale Earnhardt and everything he did for the sport, I think they probably, in the back of their minds, whether they'll admit it or not, they know that there's a portion of fans for whom NASCAR died the same day Dale Earnhardt died. And you're not going to get them back. So why keep trying to get those fans back? Why not try to build a brand new fan base that needs all of these in-season tournaments and versus matchups and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, it is interesting. When you talk about the way that they've tweaked it, I think the tweaks I don't know that the tweaks have helped. I think the old heads, the people who grew up watching it, I don't think they're a fan of the tweaks. However, there is a large contingent that are like you said, are fine with the tweaks that they've made. So it's really interesting. Obviously, like you said, with it being a month away, the Clash coming up, and then the Daytona 500, it'll be really interesting to see the storylines as well as the in-season stuff that's new this year. Hopefully, I really hope it does pique my interest, but we shall see on that. Diesel, I want to look in the very next segment. We know who's playing in the College Football National Championship. We also know who made the college football playoff that did not, get the job done. But those 10-win teams that were on the bubble, right? The teams that almost made the college football playoff. Let's look at the 10-win teams from this past college football season and decide. It's a tough discussion. Who was the best 10-win team in 2024? Tolos, want to hear from you as well next. Hour number 4. That's right. 4 hours of Wire to Wire each and every day right here on the Fan Upstate. He is Diesel. I'm Cole Bryson. So good to have you along with us on this Thursday edition of Wire to Wire. Appreciate all of you Tolos for turning it on and leaving it on. Diesel, I asked a question heading into break. Of the 10-win teams in college football, who was the best? Who was the absolute best 10-win team? And the reason I thought we'd have some feedback on this is because there was a team in our state who almost got to say they were a 10-win team. They were just this close, but that bowl loss obviously weren't able to get their 10th win. JB says on the YouTube stream, the 2 teams that won 10 games and didn't make the playoffs that I think are the best would be Ole Miss and Illinois. What say you? 844 fan phone. You can text and call the same number.
So to your point, not including some of these do include conference championship games.
Sure.
But if you want to talk about 10-win teams, again, this doesn't include playoff wins. Ohio State, Tennessee, Indiana, Boise State, other than the obvious ones, right, that made the playoff. You've got 10-win teams in Miami, Clemson, who did, BYU, Iowa State, Army, UNLV, and Memphis. Those are the ones that are sitting inside the top 25.
That's a good base. Yep. Of those, and again, the ones you read, none of those made the playoffs. Did you start with Clemson? You did include Clemson and SMU.
I did include Clemson. That was accidental. I did not mean to include the playoff team.
That's okay. SMU obviously won 11, and they went 11-2. So we'll throw them out. And heck, for the sake of argument, to take the bias from Clemson fans out, Diesel, we'll throw Clemson out, right? So
sure.
Again, you got Miami, you've got
10-win
BYU
teams that didn't make the playoffs.
That's right. So here you go, Miami. A team that disappointed down the stretch. A very good quarterback, a very good offense, but didn't really meet their expectations. A 10-2 BYU team, and out of the Big 12, Diesel, that we all expected BYU to, in that schedule, win 10 games. But again, with that schedule, how impressive are those 10 wins? Kind of the same situation with 10-3 Iowa State, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a logjam in the Big 12. We looked at it for the most part of the season like it was one of the most competitive, meaning the most parity, meaning everybody is roughly equally strong as one another. I thought it was a really good conference and a really entertaining conference to watch this year. BYU, just a couple of years into being a Big 12 team,
sure,
being able to achieve that's exceptional for them. I look at Cole. And maybe we should also include the 9-win teams, because that's when this thing starts to log jam at the top. Yes, Illinois won 10 games by virtue of winning their bowl game, but regular season games, they only won 9. I like JB's post there, JB's comment saying that he's including Illinois because what I saw from Illinois was a really impressive football team. They played with a lot of poise. They played with a lot of maturity in that. Now, the team did. Brett Bielema did not, but the team had a lot of maturity, and I thought that was a really fun football team to watch, Cole.
Sure.
I mean, there is a log jam of solid teams, but not complete teams. Miami might have had the most offensive talent of any of these teams that we're considering here, but they didn't have the defensive talent. They couldn't stop anybody. I don't know if it was a lack of talent or if it was just an awful scheme this year that cost Miami from getting into the 12-team playoff. I mean, if you'd put this Miami team in the playoff, depending on where you seed them, Cole, I see them losing to probably 8 out of the other 11 teams that are in the playoff.
I'm just thinking top of my head, who would they have beaten?
I mean, they wouldn't have beaten Oregon.
No.
They wouldn't have beat Georgia. They wouldn't have beat Texas. They wouldn't have beat Penn State. They might have been able to outscore Penn State.
I think they would have been able to outscore Georgia, but they would have had to play their best game ever. They'd have had to play their best game ever.
They would have got trounced by Ohio State.
Yeah.
They would have gotten trounced by Tennessee. The Indiana game might have been a really compelling, high-scoring kind of football game.
Sure.
That might have been, for all intents and purposes, the most compelling and fun game to watch out of any matchup they could have faced in the 12-team.
No, I agree with that. I think,
I
think Indiana would be, if they were in, Diesel, I think they would get on their knees and pray for Indiana, right? Because, to your point, I think they could have been able to hang with Georgia and outscore Georgia if they played their absolute best game, but Georgia's defense is would have been unlike anything Miami had seen. But you know what? I credit Miami for the year they had. Really talented quarterback. Cam Ward was great. What I do think we sometimes forget, though, Diesel, like we see quarterbacks go on to the NFL, and we see these quarterbacks shine. Let's take Josh Allen, for example, right? We see these quarterbacks in the NFL really perform well, Diesel. And you know what, man? Maybe we don't talk about Miami's personnel around them enough. They still had dudes. I don't want to make it sound like they didn't have dudes, but I think to your point a minute ago, was it you asked, was it players or was it play calling or scheme? I think from a Miami defensive standpoint, I think they had the talent. I think they had enough dudes, but for whatever reason, they couldn't stop anybody late in the season. And they just were not a team late in the season that knew how to close teams out. So I want to answer this question by saying Miami's the best 10-win team. But
to that point, Cole, yeah. Miami fired their DC. I'm sure you were aware of that. They just hired a brand new DC yesterday, Corey Heatherman, who comes over from the University of Minnesota. Never heard of Corey Heatherman, but I'm sure Madcraft knew because he eats, sleeps, and breathes Miami football. But I wasn't aware. I'm not shocked that Miami fired their defensive coordinator. If they had even a serviceable defense this year, they probably would still be playing right now.
It's interesting. Minnesota. I don't know. We're not going to spend the whole segment on rating Miami's defense coordinator hire, but I don't know. Is Miami's defense? Here's the question, though, Diesel. Is Miami's DC position a try? Look, I know people will apply. People will apply for any job, but maybe that's not as attractive of a job as we think. And again, that was ultimately, in my mind, I think that was the reason they fell short in 2024 was their defense.
And you're like, why Minnesota's DC? Minnesota had the number 5 defense in college football.
Really?
Yeah, they gave up an average of 285 per game, which is just 30 yards worse.
Number 5
than Ohio State in the Big Ten, right? So they played a tough schedule. And they had the 5th best defense in college football this year.
Hey, maybe I don't know Minnesota well enough, right? Maybe I don't know my Minnesota football well enough, and rightfully so. I didn't watch any Minnesota football this year, just to let you know.
It's weird to say that Miami had a top 30 defense.
Yeah.
It's like, huh?
Yeah, it is.
How does that math? I don't get it.
That is
as many points as they gave up, as Could you just call it a non-clutch factor because Miami couldn't stop anybody when they really needed to?
Minnesota went 8-5 in 2024 this past season. Let's see, North Carolina, Rhode Island, Nevada, Iowa, USC, Michigan, 2 tough. Well, I don't want to say tough games, but at the time they were ranked.
Right.
UCLA, Maryland, Rutgers, Illinois, good team. Penn State, really good team. Wisconsin, then Virginia Tech. So,
okay schedule, but certainly not a murderer's row week in and week out.
Hey, I'd say it's better than ACC schedule.
Yeah.
I mean, USC, Michigan, Illinois, Penn State, Iowa, that's better than any ACC schedule you'll find. And they beat Virginia Tech, an ACC program, 24-10. So, hey, maybe, like I said, maybe I don't know my Minnesota football well enough. And maybe my Madcraft didn't, I'm surprised Madcraft didn't jump in and defend this guy there. But it's interesting. I think I will go with Miami at 10, or the best 10-win team. I would have loved to have seen Diesel. Now, did we throw Iowa State in there?
No, we mentioned them. We mentioned that Iowa State had 10 wins.
But we didn't put them in.
Neither one of us said, yes, that team has to be on the list.
Yeah, and let me see here. I'll tell you what. Yeah, I think it's interesting. You look at Illinois, and I know JB brought up Illinois. I think I would go with Miami. UNLV was good. Mountain West and Memphis, they're always going to win a lot of games in the American Athletic. But I think Miami's the correct. Look, there's your championship, Madcraft. There you go. That's what you can hang your hat on. We can officially say in my
NIT champions.
Right. You were the best 10-win team that did not make the college football playoff.
I bet Madcraft, and tell me if you think this would be compelling, watchable television, Cole. Would you watch a 4-team playoff of the best 4 teams that didn't make the 12-team playoff? So in that sense, you're probably, I know, you're probably talking about an NIT of Alabama, Miami, Ole Miss, South Carolina. If you just want to go by the rankings.
Okay, here I'm going to answer your question by asking you a question. Are those teams playing in a bowl game?
Well, this would be in lieu of a bowl game. You wouldn't play in a bowl game. Now you're playing essentially in an NIT. God, I mean, I'm thinking about, wouldn't it be great if we just scrapped the bowl season entirely and just had a second 4-team playoff?
4 teams
for an NIT. Yeah, for an NIT in football.
Would there be, and again, maybe the answer is yes here, would there be enough money in that? The fan base,
I think it would
television
have to be
product,
all on campus. Yeah. I love the fact that I love the idea of having this whole tournament on campus.
So your 2 games at the higher seeds, you know, whoever the 2 higher seeds are.
3 games all on campus. Let's call it. If we just want to go, 1-4-3-2 kind of bracket style, you're talking about South Carolina at Alabama, which we saw once this year already.
Yeah.
And then Ole Miss at Miami. And then the winner would play at Alabama. I mean, well, the winner would play at the higher seed of the 2 winners.
Let me tell you
and
this.
I'm not even going to say it'd be Alabama. So I think it might be, an NIT championship at Miami.
Would I watch? You know me. I'll watch Maction on Tuesday and Wednesdays. So yes, I'll watch.
I mean, didn't you tune in and watch this Tiger Woods hitting a golf ball into a net thing that's been on TV the last 2 days?
No, I was at a high school basketball game, and by the time I got home, I think it was off.
I had laundry to fold or something. No, actually, I did tune in and catch part of it. I was at the gym the other night walking on the treadmill, and it was on TV. I didn't put it on. It was on, and I kind of paid attention to it for a couple of minutes, and I got a little bit better sense of what this thing was.
Sure.
And I still thought it was kind of stupid.
I would need to go back and watch it. I would need to go. Look, like I said, I'll watch a lot of sporting events.
I don't want to change the subject and go back into and give you more detail of what this thing is about, but it's like,
Yeah. I'd watch a college football NIT, but I don't know. Here's what I don't know. Would fan bases care? Would Alabama care about? I mean, think about this.
What if there was money or a prize on the line?
Well, maybe so. If there's money
$1 million
or a prize. If there's money or a prize, obviously that changes things. But then I ask the question, why are you giving money or a prize to a team that didn't make the original playoff, right? Look, the NIT in college basketball, it's a thing. Players go or teams go to it. Fans go to it. Parents, family members, friends that are potentially seeing their, whatever play for the very last time. I get it, but in college, I mean, think about this. Alabama.
Put it at Disney.
Put
it at Disney and do like Wide World of Sports at Disney.
Alabama hosting an NIT championship. How far has the program fallen? We are hosting. I mean, Nick Saban he'd faint. I mean, he would literally faint if that happened. So it's interesting. I think it's a great thought. But I'll say I'm not for it. I don't. Hey, do you watch the NIT in basketball?
Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah.
I don't think I do. You know what? I take that back. If it were on TV last year, I might have flipped it on, but I don't think I put an effort in to watch the NIT.
I mean, I'll watch the NIT if my team is in it.
Right.
And you're also talking about 4 big fan bases that feel like that they should have been in this thing, and they get the chance to prove themselves of why it was a bad call for them to be left out. I don't know. I mean, you may end up seeing a lot of opt-outs in that tournament if it were to play.
Let's go to the phone lines. 844-326-3663. Tolos, do us a favor and save that number in your phone. We repeat it because we want our new Tolos to have it. But let's go to Harold in Greenville. What is on your mind, Harold?
I'm just touching on what y'all talking about. I'm sitting here kind of cool. But listen, the only all I want to see before I leave the right side of the grass is I want to see the playoff expanded to 16 teams.
Ooh, I like it.
You won't be having all this if 10 or 9. Let them play it on the field. If they ain't no good, then they get beat.
Harold, what if we have a 16-team playoff and somebody's upset because they finished 17th and they felt like they should have been in?
Well, I mean, hey, it ain't no different than this year. That's it. Hey, you got a chance. If you finish in the top 16, that should be your goal. It shouldn't be no ifs and buts and candy nuts about it.
So I'll Harold, I will, if you don't mind, I'll tell you that I will disagree with your 16. I don't think we should expand. Again, I said it a couple of weeks ago when we expanded it to this year's 12-team playoff, we got the same result, but all we did was we let teams in the playoff who were not as good, and those teams got beat. So we ended with the same result.
Well, not necessarily, because you might have teams in there that can advance. It wasn't in it this year, Cole.
Yeah.
And listen, as far as NIT, my question, Carolina's 10-7. You think they're going to make the NIT this year in basketball? Because I listened to my last game last night. I'm not turning them on.
Your last game, you're already giving up on them. You and Tom both.
Well, listen, it's like Ray Odom. Ray Odom had 3 runs in NIT, and I enjoyed that a lot more than the dang season.
Yeah.
Of course, Eddie Fogler had 2 of the best seasons ever, and he made it to the first round. He's one and done. But basketball, my sports is football and baseball.
Yeah.
So when y'all get through the football, I guess Tolo, I might be a Toto, turn on and turn off.
Oh, don't do us like that, Harold.
So listen, y'all come NASCAR, I could care less. NBA, I could care less. Hockey, soccer.
Well, listen, don't worry. We're not going to talk about things that our audience don't want to talk about.
Harold, I want to bury this little piece of knowledge in the back of your mind here, Harold. I looked at
for college baseball. I'm waiting for South Carolina baseball. That's what I'm hoping for, coming up, because I'll get involved with that.
Harold, so you know that the FCS National Championship playoff has now expanded to 24. You go back, and this is only 2 years worth of data here, okay? So it's not a tremendous amount of information here. But you go back to 2023, the 2 teams that made it to the national championship in 2023 were the 1 and the 3 seeds. In 2024, the teams that made it in were the 1 and the 3 seeds. I think ultimately what it proves when you add more teams in, it proves that fewer and fewer of those teams really have a legitimate shot to make their way through a tournament where you have to win 4 games to be a champion.
Well, listen, that's not the point, Cole, what I'm talking about. At least those teams are in it, they'll have a chance to see if they can make the playoff. And you ain't talking about money. That's going to bring in more money, as far as because you'll be having fans of teams that they pull for, like it is previously. Well, my team's in the playoffs, so yeah, they're going to be interested. I think any of them. I think it'll bring in more money at 16 than it did at 12.
It definitely.
My opinion.
I agree with that. It'll bring in more money.
Will. Yeah, absolutely.
It'll bring in more money for sure. Thanks for the call, Harold. Appreciate you as always. We're up against it, so we are gonna take off. Pete Yannity, WSPA 7. On the other side, we'll talk to Pete next. You've done both underdogs already, right?
Yeah. For some reason, I couldn't get Harold's call to drop.
That's fine. I just couldn't remember if we.
I did, yeah.
Only done. I guess it's the last day we'll be playing a bourbon and bacon fest, unless we have one for tonight. Is there?
Yeah.
You said BB.
It should be BBFR is the rotator, but the tomorrow cut should be BBF3.
You got it.
That It's 0, 1, 2, 3. One, like 0 was generic.
Got it.
One was Friday. 2 was tomorrow. 3 was today.
This is a long interview.
It's so funny. He goes, short answer. He's like, would you like me to expound? I was like, yes, please.
Please, please go.
Please,
Yeah.
please.
A night of pure indulgence, mounds of bacon, rivers of bourbon, plus allocated bourbon flavors to tantalize your taste buds. Why not fire up a fine cigar while you're at it? Bourbon, bacon, cigars, and even some sweet treats to cap it off. General admission and designated driver tickets are on sale now. Your participation directly supports Carolina Adaptive Golf, benefiting veterans and individuals overcoming physical or mental trauma. The Bourbon and Bacon Fest, tomorrow. Secure your tickets now at bourbonandbaconfest.com. That's bourbonandbaconfest.com. Sponsored in part by Remedy Distillery, Clyde Mays Bourbon Whiskey, and Mellow Corn Bourbon.
We all hear the radio ads about the IRS. They tell you to be afraid, to be scared, and they try to frighten you into calling. I'm not here to do that. Tax Relief Advocates is different. TRA is here to tell you that if you owe money to the IRS, whether it's $5,000, $50,000, or $500,000, we have a solution. It doesn't matter if you're sitting in your car, at work, or with your kids. No matter where you are, call now. 800-5...
Love bringing the show Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson as absolutely local as we possibly can. So who's better to talk local sports than Pete Yannity, WSPA 7 sports director, TV and radio play-by-play host. He's been broadcasting here in the upstate for over 35 years. He joins us on the show. Pete, number one, appreciate your time this afternoon. And there was a story that broke in the last 36 to 48 hours, and it's got a lot of local parents and athletic trainers really up in arms about this. It's got a lot who are positive about the change that's coming. But Greenville County has approved converting all 15 county high schools to artificial turf surfaces. Just basic yes or no, is this a good idea to make this change?
I think you would have to look at from a practical standpoint. And by the way, great to join you guys. And you should see my Twitter feed because all I am is a messenger. And I got wind of the story yesterday. It was actually approved Monday night by the board and just kind of, I guess, got lost in the minutes of the meeting. And then I got word and followed up with Greenville County folks. I think stepping back generically, just bluntly, I'll say I think it's a good move, but there's a lot of depth to that. And that is done with an understanding of the sentiment of those who would counter and have a different opinion on such a move. So if you want just a yes or no, I would say yes. Let me know if I can continue my testimony as to all the reasons as to why.
Absolutely.
Please enlighten us.
We're in congressional approval week of cabinet members, so we may as well do that.
Pete, I'm a roast. Base me.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Okay. So here's the deal. I totally get the part about, oh my God, it's going to cause more injuries. First off, there is no doubt in the artificial turf era that goes all the way back to, and I know you guys know this, the mid 60s when the Houston Astrodome was built with grass and a glass roof. And they suddenly realized, oh no, guys can't see fly balls. The sun provides too much glare. Okay, let's paint the roof. Well, now the grass isn't going to grow. And that's why the original product was called AstroTurf, because it was built for the Astrodome. Anyway, and then AstroTurf was awful. We saw, and then city governments and county governments got together and built multi-purpose stadiums. That's why you had an explosion of those in the late 60s, early 70s. We can get 2 for 1, put the football team and the baseball team in there. But of course, it was terrible and awful. And then you had the conversion back to grass, and it's great and it's wonderful. But you have to realize, like many school districts around them here in the upstate and all around South Carolina, North Carolina, and so forth, you've seen a conversion to field turf because in the old days it was quaint when all you have is a football team playing in a stadium on grass. Now you've got boys and girls soccer, varsity, and in many cases JV and lower teams. You have boys and girls lacrosse, which of course earlier this century was introduced to the area. So you could have 5 varsity teams playing games year round. And that obviously causes a clogging of practice fields because not everyone has the space that a Dorman has been blessed to have, and even some of these other schools that have been built recently. So you have multi-use, and the turf, you could make the same argument of the injury of, oh no, field turf, not good, but it's a much improved product from the original AstroTurf, and state-of-the-art changes, and it gets better and better. But you could also make the argument, could a individual, be it a high school athlete or any other athlete, not undergo, but in this circumstance, because of the crowding of the field specifically and micro to this topic, could you not be putting a child at risk playing on a substandard grass field because the wear and tear has made it look like my backyard, which I don't treat with the same care that I treat my front yard? I think you could make that argument. Secondly, when you have rain that's putting mud and making your practice fields unplayable, well, you still have a field that can dry quickly. Once you can get the kids back out there, they can practice on the field, turf field, and would it not be better to keep them in good practice conditioning as opposed to having to stay in a gym and practice where they could just as well get injured, but more importantly, they are able to stay up to speed. So when they go play in a game, they don't get injured because they've stayed in practice shape. So in this case, if you just had one field that was used by one team, then you'd say, keep it grass, that's the best thing. But it's the multiple use of all these different teams in these football stadiums that led to it. And that's why in Anderson, the district that includes Westside and Hannah, Spartanburg High built a new stadium. They've got plenty of fields. They've got a beautiful high school and all of that, but they determined it was in their best interest for a number of reasons to do that. And it's not like this is some novel thing that just dropped out of the planet. I mean, look around. 3 districts in Spartanburg County, the district that includes Emerald and Greenwood. In Pickens County, you have stadiums that have field to artificial surfaces, and Westside and Hannah. I keep saying field turf because that's like calling this surface Kleenex. In other words, there are probably field turf is actually technically a brand name, but basically that's what this era of an artificial surface. It's pretty much similar to the original field turf product.
We're joined by Pete.
That is my only testimony, and I will take the Fifth Amendment on all of it.
No, it's okay. It's a good testimony, really good testimony, as we're joined by Pete Yannity of WSBA 7. From a financial standpoint, Pete, Diesel and I were talking about this during the break. Is taxpayers going to pay for this, or have you heard as to who's going to foot the bill for these Greenville County schools getting a lot of turf fields, 15 turf fields that I imagine will be a pretty costly project?
$24 million project, and then an annual maintenance cost, which probably is going to be, I saw it cited in the notes from the meeting as $1 million or so. I'm not sure of the intricacies. Let me also qualify myself as saying I'm the sports guy. And while I have a gargantuan ego and often think I'm somewhat intelligent, my response to who's going to foot the bill is that Greenville County School District, like so many entities in our area and in any state, is its own taxing authority. So that would be for those who are under the taxing jurisdiction of that, I would inquire, but I would suppose like any other entity, be it public or private, budgets are set out. This was discussed by individuals who have been placed in their roles by the process that is in place on the school board to make such decisions. And I would suppose a very serious and sober evaluation of the costs that go into this and how they will budget for it and what that means for the taxing. But that's a question that is answered by a taxing authority itself. I don't have the answer to that. But just like anything else, I mean, they built a beautiful fine arts center at Wade Hampton High, state-of-the-art, gorgeous, replicates many of the great ones we have at other high schools in the area. I would suppose at that time they had to determine how they would go about and provide for the funding for that. They've, of course, Greenville County Schools, for those who've been around in the area, had a renaissance, a unbelievable construction project to replace aging schools in the late 90s, early 2000s. They built some beautiful high schools or added to one sitting on their existing footprint. And all of that had to be evaluated the same way this has to be evaluated, the same way in terms of cost when they buy a bunch of new buses or build another building has to be evaluated. But that is above my level and above my corner of the earth.
Pete Yannity joins us here on Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. I guess, Pete, you could also make the argument that now that all of the institutions in the county are playing on the same surface, there's less variance in the surface that you're playing on from school to school to school. So you're more used to playing and how it feels and how planting your foot reacts on one field versus another, artificial versus natural grass. So I guess there's a lot of ways that you could look at whether or not this is going to ultimately be beneficial. Can you give us your thoughts on the brand new DC hire at Clemson? Tom Allen had his introductory press conference yesterday. Obviously, he's got a tall task taking on LSU in his very first appearance with the Tigers. I have a feeling that Clemson's defense is going to take a massive step up next year.
I think it's, as a very smart NFL GM once said to me, and I looked at him oddly, but then realized how sensible it was. Players make plays, so you've got to have really good players. I think Clemson's got a lot of really good players coming back to their defense. I think having someone of his experience in that role is more congruent with what they had when Brent Venables was in that role and was putting up the kind of defensive numbers that Tom Allen did in his lone season at Penn State. Look at how many teams they were able to shut down during the year, some really good teams, including, a guy who was right in the hunt for the Heisman, Boise State's running back in the playoff game. And the fact that, Penn State's offense was kind of up and down, and we kind of saw the good and the bad of that in their game against Notre Dame, but they were in every game this year, and a lot of that had to do with the defense. He's very much about doing something that another NFL coach once said to me, and that's the primary role of the defense is to get the ball back to the offense. And this guy's big on takeaways. I'm of the impression, and I'd have to watch. I mean, again, you give me Abdul Carter coming off the edge, I'm going to be pretty good. That's what Penn State had this year. I didn't watch. I can't say that I've microanalyzed Penn State enough to know this guy is doing all kinds of stunts, but he's been around enough, and he's been in a really good league for a long time, the Big Ten, that he's going to have some ideas on things. I think it's really interesting, and I think it's a sign of the times and how it's going to go forward is that he's not going to have a specific position group. He's going to be the overall coordinator, and he's not going to recruit. And I think you're going to see that become the template for the Power 4 offensive or defensive coordinator moving forward. Unless from the offensive standpoint, you bring in a guy who was a former NFL quarterback who just wanted to be an offensive coordinator, but also still wants to oversee the quarterbacks. I really think you're going to no longer see a guy. And as a result, Ben Boulware gets promoted from staff member at Clemson up to linebacker coach, and he just seems to be a great fit for that because, as a guy who's Clemson and upstate through and through, and he'll be going out and recruiting. And I think that guy with his personality has a chance to be a great recruiter as well. So I think you'll see this evolving. The coordinator will kind of become that executive of his group, but not have a focused position group, and probably in many cases won't have to go out and recruit.
Hey, Pete, what do you make of the local basketball scene in 2024 and now in 2025? Furman was off to a really good start. Wofford kind of started slow, and USC Upstate has a guy that everybody likes to talk about this season too. But you look at Tuesday night. I mean, I believe it was, Monday night. Furman just ran into a buzzsaw-like Wofford team who jumped out to a hot start and never looked back. And it seems like Wofford's kind of been put on the back burner in the last few years, but they have held their own in terms of competing year in and year out against Furman.
I think you see for Wofford real quick is that Jackson Civils, Kyler Filowich, and Corey Tripp have all played together for 3 years. Add in Dylan Bailey, who's now been there for a second year, and Justin Bailey, who transferred from USC Upstate, used to play at Blue Ridge. Really helpful on both ends of the court. Good three-point shooter, really good on-ball defender. But look at the experience they have. And if you can be old in college basketball these days, that's a huge benefit. And Wofford is really quietly more physical than I think people realize. Filowich sets that tone, but Tripp is a guy, he can get in there and get you some rebounds at 6'3" as a guard, and they're a very physical team. And I may have left out one of their other veterans. Furman, Bob Ritchie's a phenomenal coach. He had to bring a lot of guys in. You get off to a 14-1 start with your only loss to Kansas, you're doing something right and getting those guys to mesh. But I still think that they feel like even their better days are ahead of them because they've got guys still trying to, fully work into what they're doing system-wise. Cooper Bowser, their center, is vastly improved, and again, can only get better as time goes on. And with his size, he can be a real force. And Charles Johnston, the guy they brought in from Division II ranks out in California, 6'11" guy who can step out and shoot, is a matchup nightmare in the SoCon. And for a lot of schools, they would play if they could win the tourney and get to the NCAA tournament. So they've got some really interesting pieces to go with a guy like P.J. Smith and Nick Anderson, one of their newcomers, a big guard. They've got scoring guards, but Furman is a team that the other night against Wofford, clearly it was a physical game, and Wofford, for a good part of the game, looked like the more physical team, and some of the stats bear that out. And again, if they play that, they're going to play again in Spartanburg. Furman could go win that game. Furman really grinded out a good win. I thought it was interesting last night. The 4 games that we care about from our little corner of the world, 3 involving the upstate teams and also South Carolina, all 4 of those games were decided by 3 points or less.
Wow.
And that tells you everything. And I did a women's game last night. USC Upstate beat UNC Asheville by 3 points in that game. But, that's college basketball in conference play in January. But, just kind of an assessment there. I think Mr. Dean's the guy you mentioned, USC Upstate, human highlight reel, freshman from Miami. We live in the portal era, so what do you think is the side story? I mean, seems like a great player, good kid, new coaching staff there, but just like anything else, you got to worry about what your roster is going to look like when you get through with the season, especially when you're a mid-major.
Joined right now by Pete Yannity from WSPA 7 on Wire to Wire with Diesel and Cole Bryson. We recognized Dorman Products Miles Tate yesterday, who's playing exceptionally well this season at App State. A question for you that you can really only qualify from spending years covering high school sports in an area. Is there an athlete or two, boys or girls, in the high school ranks right now that you think really has a chance to be special at the next level?
If I say one, then I'm leaving out another. And I hate to be, I hate to go coach speak on you. I will say this, we do this award called our Star of the Year for high school football each year, and I have 10 area coaches vote on it. I don't have any say in who wins the award. We do it like the Heisman Trophy, in which, I give them a candidates list of like eight football players. And Cutter Woods was the winner this year, and Quez Henderson from BHP finished second. And last year, when they were both juniors, Quez Henderson won and Cutter Woods finished right behind him. Those two guys will impact their respective programs they're going to. I think Quez sooner than Woods, But you look at Woods, I think, like any kid his age, he's going to still grow some. Really good-looking player. Learned a ton of football under Brian Smith, under Brian Lane the past couple of years. And was a play away from, if that game goes overtime, they might win it and win back-to-back state titles at Westside. I'd say those two guys look like they're going to have an impact on the next level. Woods, they brought in some competition in the quarterback room in South Carolina, but they needed to for depth reasons. But Lenora Sellers will eventually move on, and I'd be surprised if Cutter Woods isn't redshirted this year. I don't know what their plans are, but you would suppose he'll have some years of South Carolina to really show. And so I think he's an impact player on the next level. I think that Quez Henderson's an impact player on the next level. I don't claim to be that smart, but I've covered roughly 50 guys in this state as high schoolers who eventually went on and played in the NFL. And so generally you can see the it factor. The guy you got to keep an eye on too is going to South Carolina, DeMarcus Leach from Abbeville. And he's going there as a DB, but he could be one of those guys that, again, another growth spurt, and he could eventually, but what an athletic kid, great kid. And boy, what a talented player. And, he's with a powerhouse 1A program. They'd been a powerhouse in 2A before they moved down. But don't forget about DeMarcus Leach. Again, you can see that it factor, and we've had guys come through here, and I'm thinking that guy's got a chance, and then they end up, fulfilling it. Nuke Hopkins would be an example of a guy like that. Debo Samuel, I thought, had the speed. He didn't necessarily. He had an it factor in high school. The guy scored 5 different ways in a game one time at Chapman. Nuke Hopkins, especially, though, you could just see that. But with DeMarcus Leach at Abbeville, big time player. Really impressive players. There's just 3 guys in football that come off the top of my mind. Obviously, we don't have a Zion Williamson. We don't have a Kevin Garnett in the high school range. Got a lot of really good high school basketball players, at this time. But, no one else just kind of jumps off the page right now, and I'm probably forgetting about it. Too.
Pete, great stuff as always. We appreciate your time, keeping it local right here on the Fan Upstate. Have a great show tonight, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys. Always my pleasure. If my time is done, I will get done with the swearing-in ceremony.
You heard him right here on the Fan Upstate. Pete Yannity, WSPA 7. Texter says, Pete has such a great voice. Of course he has a great voice. You have to have a great voice to do what Pete does for a living. So always appreciated a wealth of knowledge, as I say.
Yes, he is.
Daily Wires, it's the headlines, top stories in sports. We're going to get you caught up on those next. Diesel, I have a really interesting topic for tomorrow. So, any Tolos out there who are Toloing at home, which stands for turn on, leave on. That's what we ask you to do each and every day right here on the Fan Upstate. Excuse me. I put this on our Facebook page today, and it was about a year ago. I was listening to some radio out in Texas, and I heard this segment, and I've been wanting to bring it to the show. Today's our 200th show, and I just hadn't had a chance yet. But I put it on our Facebook page today. Got a ton of interaction. So a tease for tomorrow at 5. Tomorrow at 5 p.m. Here is what I posted on our Facebook page earlier today at the Fan Upstate. Tolos, if you're listening this evening, we need your interaction tomorrow. 5 o'clock, I asked a question. I want to hear from you, Tolos, because I know it'll get a lot of interaction because it's a random segment, just like Bathrooms today did, Diesel. What's the oldest vehicle / amount of mileage you've ever owned that still ran? And boy, did our Facebook comments buzz.
Yeah.
Scott, 2011 Honda Pilot still going 204,000 miles. So a lot of comments like that. That is going to be the segment tomorrow at 5. I want to hear from you, Tolos. There are some on here that you're not going to believe, some of these comments. I know that a lot of you Tolos listening did not comment on the Facebook page, so don't text in now. Don't want to hear from you yet, but tomorrow at 5, put it on your calendar. And Diesel, you too. I've
already got my answer.
Oh, do you really?
Yeah. I remember, this is not my answer, by the way. There was an episode of Married with Children. You ever watch that show?
Well, a little bit. I know of it.
It's harsh comedy that wouldn't make it on television today anymore. No. But there was an episode where Al had, a rolling joke was that Al's car was a piece of junk, right?
Yeah.
And there was an episode where Al's car was about to roll over the very end of its odometer. So if it's got 6 figures, it'd be rolling over to 1,000,000 miles.
Oh my word.
So he was at 999,999 miles, and Dodge, I think it was a Dodge.
Yeah.
We're going to send somebody down to Al's house to verify that this was true. And by virtue of him keeping the car for 1,000,000 miles, they were going to give him a brand new like Viper or something.
Yeah.
And wouldn't you know it, somebody opens the garage door, knocks the car out of park, puts it in neutral, and it rolls out of the driveway, crosses over 1,000,000 miles, and now Dodge won't give him a new car.
That sounds like something that would like Home Improvement.
It was a rolling joke that they were always like that close to hitting it big with some great windfall. Yeah. And every time it would always fall apart.
Gosh. But I want to hear from you, Tolos, tomorrow at 5. I've got a car that I'm going to do the same thing with. I'm going to run it in the ground. I'm not going to sell it. I'm going to try to rack those miles up. Tomorrow at 5, Tolos. Diesel, you going to be here tomorrow?
I will.
I'll be here tomorrow.
I will.
That's when you get told, hey, you don't have to work,
Oh, Bourbon and Bacon Fest is tomorrow night.
That's right. Yeah, we'll both be here tomorrow. And Bourbon and Bacon Fest tomorrow. Tolos.